What is up, everyone? What is up? I hope everyone had a good turkey day. Hope everyone recovered from their turkey comas, respectively. Oh, that's interesting. I just noticed something about the YouTube is not working for the Stream Demon alert. Interesting. I'm about to check that out. What's everyone up to? This is a little bit of a surprise stream. I know. I promised I would get on last night, but then the turkey, you know, it got a hold of me. It is what it is. But yeah, so I don't know if all of you saw, but I actually managed to optimize the network, and I released a little bit of a guide, or at least notes for right now, not so much of a guide, as to how to optimize your streams and stuff. Well, not streams, but the network with pfSense and everything. Because a lot of people, when they started, you know, tinkering with home labs, pfSense definitely is a little bit of a, you know, it's a bit of a hill to climb to understand it. That's interesting. Kick YouTube temporarily due to consecutive errors. Huh. Gonna have to figure out why we're getting errors. Guess I'll have that in my to-do list. Must be something with the YouTube API. Dope shirt. Yeah, I got this from Red Canary when I went to GurCon. I like it. It's nice, comfortable. You bought a PC? Nice. Well, I'm not using a VPN. I'm not using a VPN at all. As I tell people, you know, when you're in your home network, there's really no reason to use a VPN. Unless you're just trying to get around geo-blocks. But even then, the bot that I'm using is a little Pi, Raspberry Pi 4 that I have on my own network that goes to the YouTube API to check when I'm live. The Twitch and the Kick side are working just fine. So no, I don't use a VPN for most things. And when I do use a VPN, it's either I'm on a public network or I'm testing to see how something will look when coming from a different part of the world for geo-blocking reasons or work reasons or whatever. Well, the parts, want to review the setup real quick? What's the setup you got? I mean, you can drop the specs in Discord. Might be easier than putting it on the TikTok. Because TikTok, I know, lets you only do so much in terms of chat and everything. Oh yeah, some other good news. I officially am a contributor to Unify Polar. If you're not familiar with that project, that's a project that I've been using for a couple of years, actually, for dashboards on all my Unify equipment. I found a small bug in one of the dashboards, simple one-liner, but that classifies me as being a contributor to their project. It's not a very popular project, although it should be more popular, especially with Unify users. It's really great. It gives you more details than your own Unify controller will allow you. 6700 XT, $200, 32 gigabyte. Can't believe RAM's that expensive now. 32 gigabyte of DDR4 RAM, and forgot what my CPU is. Yeah, I spent, I think I spent like a couple months, was it last month when I was getting the pieces for the two servers I'm building, both 32 gigabytes Corsair memory, which is generally a little bit more expensive. I think I spent like $120 on each kit. And I'm looking at getting more memory for, I'm building a new pfSense server because the 8-core Intel Atom Server Edition has served me pretty well, but I'm doing this two birds, one stone. One, I'm noticing when I reload the Suricata rules, which happens about every 12 hours, the Intel Atom CPU is spiking to 100% CPU utilization for 3 to 5 minutes. It's not affecting afterwards, it's like 20 to 25% consistently after that. The issue being that it doesn't have AVX2. Which is an instruction set that allows it to process more. I mean, the Atom it's okay, but it's kind of entry level. And so I'm looking at getting a Xeon D inside another super micro box. I was originally debating going with a official Netgate appliance, but they're kind of expensive for what I'm trying to do, because now I'm like firmly in I need Xeon territory, or not need, but definitely will help a lot. And the Xeon will help fix a lot of that, and then what I'll be able to do is reclaim that Intel Atom Server Edition box for running Docker containers and my N8N automation, which I was originally going to do on that little mini PC with a Core i5, but this could be a little bit better. I'll have some server-grade hardware with ECC memory running all of that. And the cool thing about pfSense is, seriously, 16 gigabytes of memory is like the most you'll ever need. Even enterprise setups don't generally have more than that. Linux on M1, 8 gigabyte of RAM. Yeah, you can do it. There's Asahi Linux, but yeah. Pause my music to be here. Well, thank you for being here, Vampire. It's set to get worse, too, so I might even double up on that, to be honest. I mean, yeah. I run 64 on both of my boxes here. Not that the Windows one needs it. It was one of those, the memory went bad, and it was just what they had available, and there was a weird sale with Micro Center, so I got it cheaper than the 32 gig kit I was going to replace it with. But 64 has been in here since day 0. I have 96 in that laptop over there. But yeah, it's getting a little bit crazy with the memory prices. So what exactly is causing that crunch in memory? Is it just all the AI boxes and everything they're trying to build? And I'm also trying to get a 5070 Ti. I want to get that possibly next month or the month after, which means that I have to get a new power supply, which means I have to get new cable mod power supply cables, at least for the ATX power CPU and GPU connectors. Half of all the RAM releasing for the next 4 years. Is that seriously what happened? OpenAI can go suck my... Any good Black Friday deals, trainings, or certs to get now? Not that I know of. I don't really focus too much on the trainings or cert side of it. I mostly just do the home lab things. I did just do a final for ethics so that I could get some credits before I start my bachelor's program next month. Or, not technically next month, but beginning of 2026. So I'm trying to get that all done. Finally opened VS Code in an Ubuntu environment using WSL. I like it. Yeah, you'll like using WSL inside of VS Code, or just VS Code in general, doing the Linux stuff a lot better. And the cool thing is, if you use GitHub Copilot Pro, or just GitHub Copilot, you can do things agentically with the Linux side of it. Of course, my rule of thumb is I don't hand it my password. I have it let me enter the password, or at least I have an SSH key for many of my systems, so it then can log into it that way. Looking to get a whole new PC with a 1K budget. I don't know if I get a laptop with that decreased performance. Good luck getting it under 1K right now with RAM prices as they are. Somebody was just saying they spent like $200 just for 32 gigabytes of RAM. Is it better to play games inside Steam OS or just downloading Steam on Linux OS? Okay, this is what I need people to understand. Under the hood, there's no freaking difference between Steam OS and every other Linux distribution. There's really no difference. It's the same damn Linux kernel, the same damn NVIDIA or AMD drivers. It's the same damn... Like, the only real difference when it comes to the majority... I was talking to somebody on Blue Sky about this, too, because they're like, well, I don't know if this hardware is going to work on Linux Mint if I use this or what that distro, and I'm like, it's not going to matter. The main difference between all the distributions of Linux is your graphical user interface, your package manager, maybe some of the apps that are included, and maybe some of the file organization. But fundamentally, it ain't going to make a crap difference. So instead of being like, well, what's best for... In 99% of cases, it comes down to what's best for you, not what's best for X. Now, there are edge cases like, oh, you're doing something on a server, or this certain application is built for it, like in an enterprise setting, they want Red Hat or Amazon Linux, or, you know, well, basically it's just in the RHEL family at that point. Or, you know, you have ethical hacking distros, and then I'll tell people go to Parrot OS instead of Kali. But for the average everyday use, it doesn't matter whether you're on SteamOS, Ubuntu, Kubuntu, Subuntu, Pop! OS, Bazite, Fedora, CatchyOS, Garuda, Arch. It doesn't matter. Just install the OS, find one that will let you like with your workflow, and enjoy. That's SteamOS. No, it's not optimized for gaming. That's the BS that they tell you. It's not optimized any more than any other Linux distribution because Linux itself is optimized. I don't know where people get this myth that, oh, it's optimized for gaming. It's using, let me put it this way. SteamOS is, Steam hardware is using AMD GPUs most of the time. The Steam machine is going to have it. The Steam Deck has it. Where are AMD GPU drivers and all that? Inside the Linux kernel. What is Valve doing to play games? Using Proton. There's no difference between one Proton or the other. It's all open source. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Like, I really wish that a lot of people, if this is one lesson that I give anyone going in the Linux world, this isn't Mac versus Windows. This isn't like, you know, where you jump in where, like, the Windows people have the mindset of, well, Windows can do this, Mac can't do that, so Linux, all these distributions must be different, but in the reality of it, there's not really much difference. I can hop on to Red Hat, Amazon Linux, Fedora, Ubuntu, Pop! OS, and for the most part, package manager differences, a little bit of file organization, maybe, you know, some little tweaks behind the scenes, like Amazon Linux. I know recently I was playing with Amazon Linux 2023 at work because Amazon Linux 2 is becoming deprecated. They're wanting you to use systemd timers as to opposed cron jobs, which I grew up with, you know, doing for many, many years. Functionally, it's the same. It's just, oh, I put it in a systemd timer. Now I've learned about systemd timers. I'm like, shit, that's actually nice. I'm putting systemd timers in all of my crap. And they all run systemd timers. So, like, you're looking at the bots that I've made and everything, and you look at it, it's not running a cron job, it's running a systemd timer. And that was because I learned of something on Amazon Linux 2023. Linux is Linux is Linux. Exactly. People get too hung up on, oh, there's so many distributions of Linux, they're so different. No, they're not. 99% of the time, the difference is what it looks like. And it shocks people when I tell them, this is why I made a video like about a year ago, saying don't worry about the distributions of Linux, you just need to know the families of Linux. And that's Debian, RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you know, you've got Arch, Gen 2, and then you got your special Linuxes. Specialties is like Cubes OS. Cubes OS is its own class of things. Yeah. What Linux with beautiful animation, easy but still less RAM? There's at least families. Well, at that point, you're not talking about Linux, you're talking about graphical user interface. So at that point, you're looking at KDE, GNOME, LXDE, XFCE, Sway. I think there's like a few other ones up. At that point, you're looking at basically like KDE. KDE is definitely one of the nicer ones, but it's still heavy, but it's still lighter compared to Windows. I tend to like GNOME, but I'm going to be shifting to Cosmic once that becomes stable from System 76 because I like what they've done with it. What's a good brand of laptop to install Pop! OS? I use Tuxedo. System 76, the maker of Pop! OS, has their own laptop, so you can get it pre-installed with Pop! OS. Yeah, there's Tuxedo computers, there's Nova Custom, Dell, Lenovo. They have good Linux support on there, especially on the ThinkPad and the business lines of Dell. Even HP, there's really not many cases of laptops not working well on Linux, except for the special bus, special short bus kind of laptops like MSI and Asus. that tend to do weird proprietary things. Oh, and especially Razer. Razer's on my shit list and has been for years. Not because of, you know, just the lack of Linux support, because they do a lot of frickin' janky things even on the Windows side that make no sense to me. And I'm glad people are finally waking up to the fact that they're not that great. So Fedora KDE is good. I heard about Zorn OS 18. Is it good if integrated with KDE? I mean, the RAM. It's not really going to make that much of a difference. Haven't played with Hyperland. Asus Tough Gaming, B550 Plus, and AMD Ryzen 55600X. The Ryzen 55600X is pretty good, so I've actually been getting Ryzen 550... No, the Ryzen... Is it the... Yeah, the Ryzen 5 5500s, because Microsoft has been selling them for $70 a piece, so that's what my two new servers are going to have. The stream box over here is a 5700X, the Ryzen 7, and then my Linux box over here is a 5950X. So you're in good territory there. I will be honest and say I prefer Gigabyte a little bit more than Asus and others. Gigabyte, I've noticed, just does some higher quality capacitors and components on their boards for a few years. They've been really reliable, and they also have an enterprise side of things. Like, they actually make some ARM servers I would love to have in my lab. I just can't justify dropping that wad of cash. Great learning experience is wiping out my Windows OS and reinstalling everything. Yep. My MSP wants to do an unauthenticated vulnerability scan versus authenticated. Is that a red flag? No. That's typical. That's very typical. We do the same thing at my work. So you basically want to do a vulnerability scan as if you are outside the network. I forget. I think that's what you call black box. Where basically you have no idea whatsoever is running and you can see what's exposed to the world. Then you do an authenticated one so that, let's say they do somehow get credentials to access the systems. Then we need to see what vulnerabilities are exploited on an authenticated basis. Penetration test usually require they do it at multiple levels. And they'll have you kick off security at different levels, because you have to presume your security is going to fail at some point, so you need to see the blast radius. I got the Asus one because there's a good chance I'm gonna dual GPU this thing. There's no point in dual GPUing. There's really no point in running a dual GPU system these days. I'm just being completely honest. The years of running a dual GPU are gone unless you're doing GPU tasks with it, general purpose GPU. So like the AI server I'm going to be building, that's going to have an NVIDIA 5060 Ti and an NVIDIA 3050. And if I upgrade this to the 5070 Ti, then I will be putting the 3070 in here where that 3070 is. But that's because I'm running them as actual like processing. Their video games are not optimized for multi-GPU anymore. And then you also have the issue of you're splitting the data. They'd have to have the data go across the PCI Express bridges, and you're basically just having it, what, 2 X8 slots? So, and then it gets kind of janky after that, so it's really not worth it. It's better to get one powerful GPU than to have 2 separate GPUs, unless you're actually doing GPU processing. Yeah. Can you give me a direction to sort drivers from Wi-Fi and Mobo? What do you mean sort drivers from? I hate to say it this way, but you're talking to a Linux guy. All our drivers are in the Linux kernel. I need new drivers half the time. I just update my kernel. Lossless scaling has had good results on dual GPU setups, but it's not really worth it. And it doesn't scale nearly as well as people think. If anything, here's the thing. You have to look at performance per watt, not just straight performance. Performance per watt of 2 GPUs, it's really not worth it. There's a reason why even NVIDIA has kind of just left the game there. And yes, crossfire is a thing, but it's not really that important of a thing, especially if it's going over the PCI Express bridge, because then you have to worry about, in many cases, it talking to the GPUs between each other, and they don't have a dedicated bridge anymore that they can talk to each other directly outside the PCI Express bus. Another question is Wayland, what it is. Some people say not to use with NVIDIA, but everyone... So Wayland is what we're moving to. So for decades, literally decades, the... I forget what the term is. Is it the compositor? We've been using X11. X11 has existed for decades. It's tried, it's trusted, it's very mature, but it's old. It's old. And there's a lot of things that Wayland can do a lot better in the long term. Now, we still have to have Wayland mature a little bit more, but more and more desktop environments are going to be forcing Wayland. Now, there are going to be hiccups along the way, but ultimately, Wayland is going to be more secure, potentially more faster, with a lot more features. And if you're wondering, what do you mean by security? Well, X11 was around when people were not really networking things. It doesn't detect Wi-Fi from motherboard. Then you're going to have to do, if you're on Linux, LSPCI and see if it actually can see the hardware at all. Because I would check to see if it's hardware. So, like, I'm building this computer for my mother, but I'm moving country and I'll take the powerful GPU with me. Okay. So I'm getting ahead of any future GPU price increases. I don't know if you'll get ahead of that, because the whole market's been screwy. Crossfire, you'll get caught up in the crossfire. I'm looking for a side remote part-time entry-level help desk job. It's just hard to stand out. It's going to be next to impossible to find entry-level that is remote. I'm just being honest with you. A lot of those gigs tend to be mid or high tier. And like you said, entry-level, it is extremely hard right now in the market right now, even as someone senior like me, let alone entry-level. Unfortunately, like you said, to stand out. That's why I've been telling people, home lab. I've been telling people, if you're doing coding, go on GitHub, contribute to some projects. Actually, just yesterday, I became the contributor to Unify Polar. It was a one-line bug fix that I found, but nonetheless, I'm officially a contributor to the project nonetheless. And it's a more valuable contribution than a lot of the people that go around just adding commas and fixing typos and readmes. There's a lot of people that do that. There's like people out there that literally go read the documentation for Rust, correct some language, make a commit. Once it gets accepted, oh, I'm officially a Rust contributor. All you did was modify a readme. That's why I was building dual GPU. It's not really worth it, what I'm telling you. Years ago, AMD and NVIDIA put a lot of effort into dual GPU stuff, but it's not really... You're going to run into more problems than you're going to find solutions with it. And I'm telling you this from someone that did Crossfire and SLI for years. If you want to use it to store the GPU, then what I would recommend is use that second GPU for actual, like, an LLM or something like that. But as far as gaming performance, it's not going to really help all that much. X11 or Wayland. Wayland is a newer version and potentially better. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I was actually thinking about putting a second GPU in here. Because I was actually thinking of doing musical GPUs. I was thinking of taking the 3070 or the 3050. One of them is going to go into the LLM box. Put the other... So, essentially what I'm going to do is this. I have the 5060 Ti and the 3050 going into the LLM box. This 3070 is going to get upgraded to a 5070 Ti. Once I have that 3070 available, I may move the 3070 into the LLM box, and then... But it all depends on the TTS server, because I'm going to have that 1660 Super that I already had laying around. That's going to be for TTS processing. If a 3050 can somehow do that better, I'll move that over, but then that 1660 Super is just going to lay around doing nothing. So what I may end up doing is keep the 1660 Super. God, say that's 10 times fast. I may just keep that in the TTS server, put the 3050 in this box, so I have a secondary GPU, but then at that point, I just basically be sucking power, and I don't really know the use case I'm going to need the 3050 for if I'm using the 5070 Ti, because that's going to have 16 gigabytes of RAM versus 8, so. Welcome to the world of tinkering. But I am planning on getting a better pfSense firewall. So for those of you that haven't been paying attention to my Blue Sky, my Mastodon, the Discord, or the Matrix server, I did release a GitHub with a project. Parts of it are still a work in progress, but the documentation is very valuable for anyone wanting a home lab. So I'll show you. Side GUI, what are the most differences between families? Debian, Red Hat, Gentoo. Package manager and some file organization, and some of the pre-installed packages. But 99% of the things between all of them are the same. Except for the weird outliers that are like, we don't want to use systemd, we still want to use init scripts. Do you think it will ever be possible to play Valorant on Linux? That's a dev issue. That's not a Linux issue. That is straight up, devs have been lazy for many years, I'm just going to be honest with you when it comes to gaming. Kernel level anti-cheat was the result of devs being lazy instead of actually finding real solutions to stop cheaters. They just were like, well, we're just going to install this rootkit that's basically going to be spyware on everyone's machine, and we're going to do it haphazardly to the point that Valorant and Battlefield 6 couldn't install at the same time because their kernel level anti-cheat would conflict. And devs have, you know, as a byproduct of this said, well, we're not going to support Linux because, well, they could make a kernel level anti-cheat for Linux. But here's the thing. Whenever you do anything that's going to require escalated privileges on Linux, it's going to have the pop-up that you have to enter your password. Most people are not going to want to enter their password for a system-level thing for a game every time. And it's a dev issue, and any developer could make their anti-cheat work on Linux. Case in point, Apex Legends actually used to work on Linux. Then, what was it, EA decided, oh, we're going to put this stupid anti-cheat in, and then it stopped working. But my advice would be anyone that's like, well, this game doesn't work on Linux. There's tens of thousands of other games out there. Games are not a vital thing. Find one that you can enjoy. Look, there's Red Dead Redemption. There's Fallout. There's every Elder Scrolls game. There's Elden Ring. There's, Borderlands. There's all these different games out there. And you're telling me that you can't enjoy any of these other games out there? Linux will become, do you think Linux will become in upcoming Gears new Home OS instead of Windows? I don't know about that, but I can definitely say the best person that has been, the best advertiser and best people that have been marketing Linux has been Windows. Windows 11 really shot themselves in the foot because they've been adding features that no one really wants. Does anybody really want recall in Windows? Who's ever been like, oh yeah, Microsoft Recall. I've always wanted that feature. Who's always, who's been around and saying, you know what? I want AI in everything. Put Copilot in Notepad. Oh, I always wanted an online account to register my computer and set it up. Yeah, Microsoft, that's a great idea. Seriously, Microsoft has been the one that's been the best advertising. I mean, we watched a video on stream the other night. We'll get into the videos in a little bit. There's a guy that was talking about, he spent 3 hours trying to delete a file on Windows, and a bunch of people were doing that, whereas on Linux, it's just delete the file. It's gone. This year I have my first clients installing Linux. Nice. But yeah, the honest truth is, I'm not so, not eager. Would it be egregious? No, it wouldn't be that. I'm not so overzealous, I would guess is maybe the best word. If there's a better one, y'all can tell me. I wouldn't be so overzealous as to say this is the year of Linux, but I will definitely tell you it's been happening more and more where Steam, the Steam reports, the Steam surveys they do, they've been showing, and I know this doesn't sound like much, but you got to think about this in the big picture. There are more Linux users on Steam than there are Mac users on Steam. Think about that for a second. Think about how many people you know use a Mac computer. Regular, everyday people. And now understand, in terms of Steam, there are more people on Linux than Mac. That was mind-blowing for me to realize. Now, I think with the Steam machine coming out, that may help it even more. Because one of the big hindrances is a lot of people, everyday people, still don't know how to install a basic operating system. And many people on the stream here might be like, well, that's freaking easy. You just, get the flash drive, you do that. A lot of people still can't wrap their heads around that. Think about your cousins, your parents, your grandparents, all of these people. Most people use the operating system that's installed into their computer, and they have the mindset of, well, if I don't want Windows, I'm going to go to the Apple store and buy a Mac computer. Or maybe a Chromebook. They don't actually think about, oh, I can actually change what's on my machine. They just live with what's on there. Our coffee machine runs off Linux. There's a lot of things out there you would be surprised run Linux without even realizing it. I wouldn't be surprised if, looking at these Elgato key lights and everything, if behind the systems there it's running Linux. The teleprompter itself, or, a lot of these other systems. I wouldn't be surprised. Do you have a network inventory system, client or client list? There's a few products out there. I know CrowdStrike can do inventory of different things. Atlassian, the makers of Jira and Confluence, they have an inventory system. Let me see if this actually has it. Hold on. Snipe IT. Trying to think. So Snipe IT is something I use, but that's more of a management system. It doesn't really have an agent to go around and find it, but you can at least use it to manage it. This is what I've actually used when I was in an MSP for years. So they have a demo over here. So you can actually put all your different machines and all of that. You can even set up barcodes to scan it in if you want. This is their demo unit. This isn't mine. You can, check in, check out the devices, generate the label, so you can see, okay, we can have a barcode scanner. This is a pretty nice system there. But as far as the actual inventory, you're talking about a CMDB, most likely. Central Management Database... Central Machine, something like that. It's CMDB. That's what you're talking about. That would be, at work we're using Atlassian with Jira, and then we have Tenable feeding data into that. We have CrowdStrike feeding data into that. There's many ways to slice this, and there's no one perfect solution. I'm just going to be honest. It really depends on what you want to really get out of it. I hate my internet go to 100% to random IP and Edge running in background randomly. Oh, Edge? Yeah. Do M.2's SSDs in the SATA format exist? Yes, they do. You can have M.2 electrically be SATA. Look it up. There's NVMe. No, it's not technically an NVMe, but M.2 SATA. Let's find one right here. Yeah, so right here, Kingston, they have their own video. Two types of M.2 SSDs, SATA and NVMe. NVMe is running PCI Express. M.2 with SATA is just SATA. The difference comes down to the keying. So I don't know the specifics of like which key goes to which, but I know it comes down to that key. So if you get one, NVMe apparently just has that one key, and SATA apparently has the two keys. So the idea is that they shouldn't be able to, you should know. I'm waiting for Win users to switch to Linux. There's quite a few that are doing it. Yeah, but generally Mac OS users usually don't play on that machine, so I don't understand. Then you don't know the history of Mac. Mac used to actually be a really great gaming machine. Back mid-2000s, I used to tell people, I used to work in an MSP that, you know, we'd set up entire Mac shops. You would get a Mac server. Yes, Apple used to make servers. I miss Xserve. It was such a beautiful, sleek platform. I don't know why Apple left the enterprise space like that. But you used to get Apple Xserve. You used to have your network even with Apple Talk. You used to, you know, it used to literally be a case of back in the day of, oh, you want to do graphic design? Get a Mac. Oh, you want to do music development? You know, music engineering? Get a Mac. Oh, you want to do game design? Get a Mac. Oh, you want to do gaming? Get a Mac. Macs used to be really fantastic machines. I'm not even joking. Then it was like right around when they switched to having just Intel CPUs and soldering on all the components is kind of when they went downhill. They especially cooked the goose when they started not allowing NVIDIA. They just were not playing ball with NVIDIA, and they actually would not support NVIDIA hardware anymore. They used to, you know, be really great with NVIDIA, and then I forgot the specifics, but they kind of were just a prick to them, and then all you could do is get the AMD, back then ATI, stuff. You want to study networking, where should I start? Home Lab your network. And in fact, before I got on that tangent, let me share with you a project I've been putting together. So I've been, you know, using pfSense for many years for my home network here. So I released a GitHub over here. It's just simply pfSense SimStack. I'm going to probably rename this or something like that. But anyway, in here, there's tons of data. So originally, this started with me modifying a dashboard, making a whole new IDS, IPS one for Suricata. Well, it's morphed into a whole thing when I was doing my overhaul. So you have block list optimization with PF Blocker NG, like the lists that I use and recommend, how I configure them. You even have SID lists so that you can optimize your Suricata IDS IPS system. I gotta set up the Suricata documentation too. But yeah, there's quite a bit of stuff in there. I don't know, I'm too young. Do they effed up with their closed system and suppliers? What, on... I'm lost on what you're saying, or were you talking to someone else? Switch to Linux and run Windows in a VM. Yeah. Is there a proper way to get rid of UEFI malware? A shotgun. JTAG, M.2, SATA adapter 6 port. There's stuff like that. I've seen it. I've never played with them, but it wouldn't hurt me to, it wouldn't break my brain to see it happen. Should I be using switch backup management so I can see all the revision of the changes production environment? Switch backup management, yeah, you should always have all of your configs backed up. So one of the things that I do, now I'm not on the networking side, but I know whenever I do changes, things like that, we terraform a lot of our stuff. Again, this is a lot of AWS stuff, but the concept that applies, period. Learn to use Git for version control. Put all your config files and everything into a repository, and then track those changes inside of there. That way, if issues happen, you can look back at the past commits and roll back. and you'll at least have a rolling database as you move towards things. Now, of course, you're going to have to probably redact some things and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely always have backups for all your configs and everything, because I know of quite a few hospitals that have done network switch changes and they've blown their entire switches and had to rebuild it because they didn't have any backup. And they were down for like days, sometimes weeks. Veracrypt? What about it? I mean, I've used it for years. What about it? I was using it before it was even called Veracrypt, and it used to be called TrueCrypt before it got forked. I know Suricata I want to install, but I have an old Alex. Alex? Why does that ring out? Why does that sound familiar? Alex. What Alex system are we talking about? Oh. I see. Yeah. Alex PF Sense Box. Yeah, I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, that's why it sounds familiar. I haven't used those in quite a while. My firewall's running on a super server with an Intel Atom Edition C3758, 16 gigabytes of ECC DDR4 memory. There's two, I think, 120 gig SATA SSDs in a software RAID 1. I think it's Z RAID 1. I think I'm running ZFS. I don't remember. No, was it UFS? Either way, it's mirrored. And it has Intel IX NIC cards in there. It's the IX 551, I think it is, that are built into it. I was using IGB originally on an add-on card because when I was using PF Sense 2.4, I think it was not supported when I started it. Now I'm on 2.8 and IX works perfectly fine, and I do Suricata in line. Actually, that is, I think, a big reason why my network performance has been just a little bit better. Fingers crossed. I've had people saying the stream quality, and there's been fewer stream drops, because what I was doing was, so the way you have different systems. So, of course, you have your typical firewall, your old-fashioned, that's using block lists. So it's simply, hey, allow or pass. And most people are doing blacklisting rather than whitelisting. Which basically is saying, these things shall not pass, and be like Gandalf, you shall not pass, and everything else gets by. The problem with that is, it's not really, that flexible, because it's either you get in or you don't. Now, what I do with Suricata, now people use Snort. So before we get into that, Snort and Suricata are both what we call intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems, also known as IDS and IPS. Basically what they do is what the name, spells out. They detect intrusions and stuff. So for years I was, tinkering around. Snort, the problem is it's a very heavily single-threaded. So you actually are limited in terms of link speed, like per link that you have. So like this desktop, that desktop, each one would have a bottleneck based on how fast the CPU could actually process that individual thread. Suricata can do snort lists, but it's able to be multi-threaded. Now, it's still dependent on single-thread performance, but Suricata works a lot better. So the issue that I had with Snort was, I think when I was doing my testing, I was limited to 250 or 300 megabits per second per link, even though I had a 1 gigabit connection, because Snort had to inspect that. And I was limited by that link speed. Now, the interesting thing was that's per link. So even though it was 300, that wasn't for the totality. I could have this device over here do 300, that device do another 300, have a third device do another 300, and they would all happily chug along doing their thing, but they wouldn't ever get near that 1 gigabit. Now, Suricata, I don't have that issue. So the 8-core Intel Atom Server Edition, it's split across that. And Suricata, now what I do is, the legacy version of IPS, the intrusion prevention system, was it would look at every packet coming through, duplicate it, inspect it after it had come through, and then do whatever action needed to be done based on that detection. That's a little bit slower than inline, which is what I've moved to in the past couple of days. Now, you need to have a good enough network interface card to support this, so the Intel ones, like the iX series and all that, they do. And Suricata, not only do I not have the, 300 megabit, single thread cap, performance. Of course, if you get like an overclocked CPU, you can, get around that. Again, it's down to the single core performance that you have. Well, now it's actually doing it when it gets the packet. So as soon as it gets the packet, it's doing inspection and then lets it on through. So it's like that bouncer in the club. Hey, you get in. Oh, no, you're not allowed in. You get in. So it's doing that at the moment of coming through. So it's actually made my system faster, even though, in terms of latency, even though it's technically needing a little bit more performance from it. But the shocking thing is, the Intel Atom Server Edition, 2.2 gigahertz, not that super powerful, is still sitting around 20 to 30% CPU utilization, and it's only maxing out when it's doing the rule updates. So around 4 o'clock in the morning, and again, 12 hours after that, I have to adjust it. It's downloading all the rules, recreating all the rules, and it takes 3 to 5 minutes. So for 3 to 5 minutes, twice a day, it's full bore. And then it gets back to like the 20 to 30 range. That is actually more of a limitation of the Intel Atom CPU lacking AVX2 instructions, which is why I'm looking at upgrading the firewall to an Intel Xeon D. I think it's the 1518 was what I was looking at. Supermicro has a nice little box. It's basically the same thing as the Atom, but a better CPU. So still DDR4 ECC, so I don't have to throw out tons of money with DDR5. And it's got 10 gigabit networking ports on there. So I can start planning for 10 gigabit network upgrades as I get down there. But what that's going to do with AVX is it's going to allow that processing with Hyperscan a lot more efficiently. So potentially I should actually see a drop in CPU load, even though it's a 4-core 8-thread, because it's got hyperthreading, versus 8 threads, but it's the same CPU frequency, but it can turbo to 3 gigahertz. So 2.2 base to 3 gigahertz. Just bought some new TP-Link stuff. Powerline Ethernet adapters. Ew. Okay, here's the thing. Powerline adapters are one of the worst options that you should ever go across. Here's the reason why. This is where I get to put my electrician hat back on. I used to be an electrician, for those of you that don't know. Electrical lines are extremely noisy. Not only that, you run a power line. Most of you don't know how your power lines are run throughout your house. So what it has to do is not only does it deal with all the noise of the regular power line, it has to go through that power line, and if it's on the same circuit, great! You have a short shot over there. But if it's on a different circuit, it has to go all the way down that Romex, back to the panel, go over to the other circuit, all the way back up to where it's being found. And you have such a limitation in the length that you can have. There's so many issues that can go wrong with it. I would actually tell people power line adapters are worse than getting a repeater. And you should never really get repeaters. You should go for a mesh network. That's the honest truth. I've dealt with power line adapters and all that, and I know a lot of people are like, hey, I'll get gigabit speed. You may, but you want to check your packet loss. And then also, let's say you start doing something noisy on the line, like a microwave or a hairdryer. You'd be surprised how many devices out there can introduce noise on a line. Now, to the average power line, the average power appliance, it doesn't care. Because it's actually designed to hand around that. So, yeah, don't. I would strongly urge not to go with power line adapters. I probably should make a video on that at some point. I know I have on TikTok. I should make that on YouTube. Yeah, I got so many videos to take care of. Tomorrow, I got to do quite a few videos to record. Today, I didn't really. I did a final on study.com. I knocked out the ethics course before I go back for my bachelor's. But one of them is a mesh. Well, Antigua has an ISP that gives internet via power line. Ew. I do not even want to know how noisy that line is. There are videos on how bad they are. Oh, absolutely. There are definitely videos. Barracuda firewall opinion. So I've used Barracuda. I used Barracuda email appliances back in the day when they actually were a physical appliance. I think they still exist. But nobody really hosts their own email server on-prem anymore. And if you do, get the hell away from me! Friends don't let friends run their own email servers, okay? So here's what I will say. Barracuda used to be great. They've kind of fallen off. I don't really see any one of my coworkers talking about them that much. Don't get me wrong, I learned quite a bit with them. They did great stuff, but they're kind of just falling off on terms of like bleeding edge stuff. Once upon a time, they were great. You have been going to DEF CON, my dream. Say, Lucky, hi from France. Oh, yeah. I've gone to DEF CON 3 times, hoping to go again this year. But what I actually want to go to one time, and you're actually closer because you're in France. I think it's over in Germany. The Chaos Communication Conference. That's like the DEF CON of Europe. I've always wanted to check that out. That seems like it'd be pretty cool. I wonder what the vibes would be like compared to DEF CON. So I totally would love to go to the Chaos Communication Conference. If one day I happen to make, you know, this content creator influencer thing into a proper side hustle to make a decent amount of money, maybe I'll do that one day. Fly out to Germany, do that. That'll be fun. I used to live in Germany. I like Europe. Anguilla doesn't. Both ISPs and Anguilla use fiber optic. Okay. Powerline adapters sound really cool, though. Just the concept. The concept is cool. The real-life application is not. There's a lot of things that seem cool. Like a lot of Leonardo da Vinci's drawings. They seem cool. But I would want to use most of them. Oh yeah, I forgot. What was I doing? I have to figure out what the YouTube error was inside of the project. Oh, and I am getting closer to next year doing the Kubernetes project. I have I'm going to be rack mounting some Raspberry Pis in the next week or two. So the plan is I'm going to be taking 3 Raspberry Pi 3B Pluses that I have, getting them set up to be my Zero Trust network access nodes with TwinGate. So that way, that'll be how I remotely connect into my devices whenever I'm away from home, if I ever need to. And then I'm going to be moving the bots off of my Raspberry Pi 4 to a mini PC, at least until I get my pfSense box reclaimed, the Intel Atom Server Edition, because I want to move from the mini PC to the Intel Atom Server Edition box that I have running my firewall. And that one's going to be running N8N and all the automation stuff, because that Atom CPU, I think, is going to be a little bit more energy efficient. Plus, it's rack mount server grade hardware. And then I can keep that mini PC for something else. Oh, and this mini PC has been running fantastic. This is the logging server. Core i7 10510U, 32 gigs of RAM, 2 terabyte NVMe. It's made by Purism. It's the Librem Mini, Intel Management Engine disabled, just if you're curious. Out the box, stock. This guy is a little bit warm, I will say that. It's just a little warm. Just a little. But, it's not unbearably warm. Like, I'm holding it. It's just, you can definitely notice it. But it doesn't have any, fans. So, I may affix a fan in the, rack to just kind of briskly push over it. But this has been running as my logging server. This will soon have Wuzza as my SIM and EDR. I did do some research and realize Wuzza's going to be great as the SIM. But I'm going to need to layer on another EDR solution to actually do preventative measures. And it's going to be a little bit expensive because I'm trying to find one. Now, this is where it gets janky. So I want to do CrowdStrike, but they're a little bit expensive. So then I looked at alternatives. Well, I was then like, Bitdefender Gravity Zone seems nice, but the problem is you're only allowed, if you buy 10 licenses, to have 3 of those be Linux. They count any Linux machine, desktop, or server as a server. You're only allowed to have 3 servers. So immediately I'm like, well, I'm boned there, because I wanted to have a few agents. I wanted at least the LLM server, the TTS server, the logging server, my desktop. Oh yeah, and the N8N server. That's 5 right there. That's what I wanted at least to run an EDR agent for preventative measures and do some further analysis. So Bitdefender was like, okay, can't really do that, because you have to, for every 5 licenses, you get 1 server license. So I'd have to buy, I think it was like 20 to be able to use that. And I'm like, that makes no sense to me. Sophos wasn't much better. So yeah. Used iPerf 3 to measure the speed from my NAS to the power line adapter to my PC. Let's see. Tech channel on where? The Discord? Or are we talking on the Matrix server? Okay, that's your speed, but what's your latency in your packets? Because, well, no, that's your throughput. That's not really your latency. And 11.4 megabytes. You said you have 1 gigabit, I'd be curious what the latency is in your packet drops. How do you measure latency? Ping. Do a ping. Do a consistent ping. See how many packets actually drop. Do it for like 5-10 minutes. Then cancel out the ping after you do consistent one. Now, if you're on Windows, you have to do, what is it, ping-t. If you're on a Linux or Mac box, just do ping. It'll consistently do it until you kill it. Thoughts on the IT Specialist Sim game? Don't know what that is. Okay, I've got an oddly specific question for you. Do you have a static or dynamic IP? If dynamic, what do you deal with that? I use dynamic. So I don't actually host anything on my machine that requires me to dynamically access it. Although, with TwinGate, it will handle the dynamic IP change anyway, because I'm not So I'm connecting to TwinGate. Well, I'm using a zero trust network exchange, basically. So, if I understand it correctly, it's similar to Zscaler. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Yuna, she, they. Thank you. But basically, with TwinGate, it automatically will resolve what my IP is, announce that to TwinGate. So when the TwinGate agent on the device I connect through, will hit TwinGate to get that information. Now, if I recall, TwinGate operates similarly to Zscaler, but not nearly as robust and nice. But Zscaler wants like 10K a year and 50 seats minimum. Hey, Zscaler, if you're watching this video, TwinGate, it's basically a zero trust network access. So I actually route it through TwinGate systems to my system. It's not like Tailscale or such as that, which is a, I think they're a distributed VPN. So it's a little bit of a different architecture for things. So that's how I will get around that. Now with TwinGate, you do need to have, well, you don't need to, but you ideally want to have multiple nodes. So even at work with Zscaler, with our app connectors, we have at minimum 3 app connectors. And they automatically scale up and down on AWS based on the load. I worked out the logic for that. Anyway, what they do is they automatically will load balance out there. So my 3 Raspberry Pi 3B Pluses will allow me roughly 80 to 90 megabits of throughput, which is more than enough, to be completely honest, for people who are like, well, why don't you want to get full gigabit? Well, I'd need to get some Raspberry Pi 4s or 5s, ideally, and I have 3 Raspberry Pi 3B Pluses here, and in all reality, like, when I connect in, I would be SSHing. I most likely wouldn't be pulling files off of it, and even then, the upload I have is like, what, 50 megabits, so it's not going to take full advantage of the Raspberry Pi 3 Plus. Now, if I do happen to be blessed by the tech gods with synchronous 1 gigabit per second, you know, network speeds, then I'll totally upgrade to a Raspberry Pi 4 or a 5, preferably. Get the PoE hats for it and everything. But the 3B Pluses will be more than enough for that. But when I do eventually maybe host stuff that'll be locally here, I would be using a dynamic DNS on pfSense. And then I would route in through the DNS, the domain that I would set up with that. I used to do that, but then I was like, let me just do zero trust network access, because there's nothing I'm really hosting from my network that I need access from the public to it, other than the ZTNA nodes. But like I said, that'll resolve the IP from TwinGate anyway. So Yeah, here in a lot of parts of the US, we still got people on cable with asynchronous network. It's 1 gigabit down, 50 megabit up. And I'm surprised a lot of my latency and such issues were part Breezeline was a shit ISP, but also part my firewall needed some optimizations, and moving it to IPS fixed a lot of it. I'm really surprised about that. Well, appreciate you coming from the clock app. But yeah, oh yeah, free DDNS from Synology. Yeah, Synology does that. The issue that I have with depending on particular vendors, and I know TwinGate falls into this category, is if they do something screwy, it'll be a problem. Like Synology's doing screwy things with the hard drives that I'm never going to get another Synology NAS. I have a Synology NAS, but when I start moving away from my RS422 Plus, I'm gonna be looking at like a QNAP or even building my own. I have a question. I'm trying to look into a lot of info finding tools because also tired of ye old scams. Okay, what it's a little bit of a broad question you got there. What are you particularly trying to look for in terms of information? Because when it comes to OSINT, it's a wide field. So just give me some more information so we can help narrow down that path for you. Will you get a Ugreen in the future? No, I like Ugreen for their devices and all that, but I don't think I would trust them for NAS. The only reason I was okay with Synology is really well known in the business world. I would maybe go for a QNAP or build it myself. And if I build it myself, I could actually do tiered storage, because what I was thinking about doing was if I actually could get hard drives on a RAID array and NVMe into that tiering, so the most used files end up on that NVMe to burst it over the network the fastest. It's like a cache, like put a 1 terabyte NVMe or something like that. And then everything's cold stored on the hard drive. That'd be great. I just remembered I have some cybersecurity textbooks on my Kindle app. Whoops. No, you're fine. But, you know, you're always more than welcome to ask questions here, the Discord or the Matrix, and, you know, we're a community. We like helping each other out. What the? Oh, what's the frickin'... I opened the wrong project in my VS Code. It was Twitch and Toot, not Star and Toot. Totally different project. Could you make me a sandwich? No! I'm not making you a sandwich. Too many carbs. You got a steak. Pseudo make me a sandwich. No, I'm a chaos machine. I use a SATA SSD for cache on Jellyfin. There you go. I'm tempted to go full 4G mode. I'm running Mint Mobile's internet one day. Oh yeah, Abby was saying what I said. You mean Minternet? So I'm running T-Mobile, their backup internet. So I looked into it. Apparently, I don't have 50 gigabytes a month. They upped it to 130 gigabytes a month for $20 a month. But then I was sitting back and I'm like, I could totally go to unlimited internet for $10 more. Why not? And then I don't have to split the accounts between T-Mobile and Mint Mobile, because I already use Mint Mobile for the TikTok phone. But what I could also do is potentially order a second Minternet device, take the SIM card out of that, and put it into my mini laptop once I get the motherboard upgrade for it. And yeah. Oh yeah, once I get done with the GPU upgrade here, the network upgrade, and get my LLM server, the TTS server, all of that set up, I'm going to be looking at finally upgrading the little laptop. But it's going to be a few months at least. Do I read chat here or Twitch? I don't know. You tell me based on that response. Although I will say Twitch is the better optimized platform when it comes to the views. Because, you know, you get the 9:16. So let me put it this way. On TikTok, you can see this. On Twitch, I can't even stretch all my arms out. Okay, I can. Sort of. I would buy that for a mobile phone plan. Only Digicel and Flow here. Huh. Pseudo git curl sandwich recipes. Now that's what we just used Gemini for. I know I did the code wrong. Well, yeah, you don't even need to... Well, why'd you git curl? Well, you do git or curl. And you don't need sudo for it. It will disable the platform until you restart the daemon. Oh, I boned. Do you think exit lag legits help? Which one's exit lag? Is this one of those network scam things that I remember seeing a while ago? Oh, this bullshit! I keep forgetting this bullshit exists. Yeah, this bullshit where they're like, you know, you know, one software that helps you, you know, reduce your latency and all that. No, it doesn't. It doesn't help. Like, look at this bullshit. Oh, you get higher frames per second? Yeah, your network latency doesn't have much to do with your system's render. These two metrics are completely unrelated things. They may, like, sell you a bunch of BS there. So, like, they're ambassadors. Let's see. If I remember, this was just some bullshit to basically route it through. It's basically a VPN with extra steps, if I recall correctly. Yeah, select your server origin. So, basically, yeah, this isn't really doing much of anything. Well, my internet's much faster than yours, Full Metal. So, I want to check something while I'm over here. Hold on. Yeah, it's just a VPN. I was right. It's just a VPN with extra steps. It's not going to do anything, really. And I want you to, like, pay attention to this. Look at all these, like, ambassadors they have. Not one damn person probably has any kind of a tech background professionally. There's not even that many of them. Although I do have to say, some of these people need to definitely learn to, you know, pose a little bit better for a photo. Anyway, yeah, this is BS. The way to actually get better network connectivity is to have a better network connection. Yeah, LTE where I live in the neighborhood sucks. Australia has a government org that runs the infra, then you pay whatever RSP to have them request a static route to them, then go out to the internet. Yeah, Australia is, well, I think, the professional term that we have for Australia when it comes to a lot of their infra is fucked. So I used to waste my money, then great. Yeah, you're not gonna get all that much, better performance. It's basically a VPN with an emphasis on latency, but if your network connection itself is already not that great, a VPN's only gonna make it worse. Because let's put a, you know, a map out here for, let's do our basic networking, okay? Let's bring up draw.io, because, you know, we're more professional than people that use Notepad and then pretend that they worked at Blizzard for 7 years. Well, they didn't pretend, but, you know, really only got hired because, you know, that, and then try to portray themselves as some elite hacker that ends up getting laughed at by the rest of the cybersecurity community. Anyway, okay, so this is you. Okay, that's you. Y'all can see my screen, right? Didn't have power for 4.5 days after hurricane last weekend. I'm also 1,500 miles from the next town, but yeah, I get it. Okay, so this is you. All right? We'll say this is your ISP, okay? So you're going to your ISP over there. And then your ISP is probably connecting to another ISP, right? So we'll put that circle over there. Okay, so, you know, there... Come on, there we go. Arrows. Okay, so... ISP... yours. Now they're gonna have to go to another ISP, all right? I'm simplifying this a little bit. We're not gonna even get into all the hops and all that between there and everything, okay? And then from their ISP, you're then gonna have yeah, we'll just do that. A web server over here, okay? Actually, you know what? We're gonna simplify that a little bit. We're gonna move that. Meh. Okay, so that's gonna be over there. And then from that ISP, it's gonna hit the data center and all of that stuff. So that's a simplification of what it looks like for you. So what you're asking to do with their system is bypass that completely. So basically what you're gonna have it do is go into here, and simply go back in. So you've added a whole extra step. But if the latency issue is between you and your ISP, that's not going to help anything. That's going to hurt. And if the issue is whatever ISP is over there, that's not going to help you. Oh, what's up? It uses quantum tunneling, which is future technology and stuff, so it's actually faster. Yep. This would be, just so you know, this would probably be a technology Elon Musk would try to sell us and say that he's improved the internet. Okay? Lucid charts? No! This is draw.io. My phone data is faster than my home fiber for this reason. Yeah, pretty much. It all depends on how the route is. Is IPv6 supposed to improve the internet? No. The IPv6 is a whole different thing. That has to do with the number of IP addresses that we have available. But if you ever want to ruin a network engineer's day, tell them about how you want to switch over to IPv6, and they will tell you all the ways you are a horrible person. Elonternet, I like that. But yeah, exit lag is not going to improve your performance at all. If you do see any performance gains, it's gonna be placebo. Just being honest. Alright, so we're gonna get into IPv5 as VoIP. Well, it was, but then it got rolled into VoIP. So, yeah. And then there was like V7 and V8, and yeah, V6 has never really, taken off. I get ads for surveillance hard drives from Seagate. Those are great for if you're doing a, NVR, network video recorder. I'm gonna be improving my, NVR stuff. Chief, can you help me set up IPv6 in my home, please? No! Bad dog. Bad! It's okay. It's okay, chat. The IPv6 can't hurt you. Alright, so let's, had a client spec their VoIP system to be compatible with IPv6 for the migration scheduled for 2035. Can I have IPv69? Sure. If my mom had balls, she'd be my dad. Max Verstappen, Formula 1 driver with You could have IPv6. Alright, banning Kara for that joke! Meshtastic took down my IG because I used the word Meshtastic in an educational post. Wait, what? I just saw what you tagged me in, Kara. Hold up. Sort of beginning to understand why people prefer other protocols. Friend was creating an educational IG to share information and promote, members for the Meshtastic community for free. Account was taken down even though the fair use guidelines provided by the org were followed. No contact from the org at all. After being contacted, what the hell? DM must to be featured or just straight up stealing the post and writing DM for credit in the caption. I'm against verifying identities to post on the internet per se, but wait, what? We just made a post about this. That account followed every last person I'm following. My personal and business builds reposted. Very odd. It appears unconfirmed that it's because their account was called Meshtastic and used the Bear M logo and didn't seem to be clearly differentiated from the organization and was a content aggregator. So maybe a bit more than a local fan group getting carried away with the branding. Hold up, the whining person. Huh. Wouldn't let me edit post. God, I ran into this post, I had no idea and forgot about trademarks when it comes to IoT like this. It's an IoT. I'm gonna need more information before I actually get in on this, but... because I know there's been a lot of people that have been drama farming. Discord about some bug reports in the firmware. Other protocols, you mean ones that also have a trademark name but use the MIT license that allows the code to be turned into a proprietary hellscape? Yeah, any complaints like these you're going to find are far, far worse with other protocols. That is a fair point. I swear there's some sort of targeted campaign. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna need more information going on about this, because I've seen, like, a bunch of, you know, different, situations like this, not Meshtastic, just in general, where people like go on about this and I'm like, there's some more stuff going on here than I think is going on. Can we have a company trip to F1 with paddock access? Look, if I get rich enough to, you know, be able to travel like that, sure, buddy. Right now, you're making more money than I am off of my own content. People are now getting nostalgic for the 2000s now. Nostalgic for the 2000s? That was my childhood. No, the oldies are the 70s and 80s. Alright, let's see what the review on stream had here. Okay, so... Bill Gates Foundation Trust cuts Microsoft stake by 65%, dropping to a mere $4.7 billion in its vast portfolio. Oh, just a mere $4.7 billion. I don't even know what I could do with $1 billion. Like, if I ever make $10 million, I could retire. My first vivid memories of a year was 2002. Thanks for making me feel old, Mario. Thanks, I hate it here. Look at Ford Motors. They sit on 2/8s, 35 million IP addresses. 1995 was 30 years ago. If you just marry Christian Horner, you'd have a lot of money. Look. Are they single? Okay. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust is the investment fund that supports the foundation's charitable work. It manages large assets donated by Bill Gates. It operates separately from the foundation itself, which focuses on awarding grants and running global health and education programs. The trust holdings are publicly disclosed through regular FCC filings. Interestingly, the trust reduced its Microsoft stake by about 65% in the quarter ending on 30th September 2025, selling more than 17 million shares during that period. Before that sale, Microsoft was the trust's largest holding at roughly 13 billion, which made up nearly 1/3 of the entire portfolio. Okay. I mean, Bill has been open saying he wants to get rid of pretty much all of his wealth and put it into charitable causes. So is this merely a situation of he's just trying to add cash so that he can actually do this? Like, what was the situation around that? Or, because you gotta remember, Bill Gates has been there since the beginning, so, you know, he's doing pretty good for himself. Bill can send me some cash. Yeah, he can send me cash too. Okay. So, let's, see. We got Vampire sent me this video. Oh, wait. Hold up. Let me make sure before, because I rebooted my machine, is the audio stack working? Because sometimes the capture card doesn't... Okay, there we go.
Front, left.
Okay, cool. It's working. Sometimes the capture card doesn't like to play nice. Did you know the dude who sells pants, Calvin Klein, you mean? I got addicted to Linux because of you. Well, it's better to be addicted to Linux than the booger sugar.
I don't think you hate MP4s enough.
Let the hate flow through you.
You might think of it as the file name for playing videos on your computer, but in reality, it actually costs a decent chunk of money for your PC to be able to display those properly. The company that's behind MPEG charges a considerable sum for the licensing when it comes to computers being able to decode the files properly. And while it wasn't really an issue for H.264 files, H.265 or HEVC videos are a completely different story. It can cost PC makers up to $25 million a year
wasn't
to
Dell
give you the functionality
and
to watch these videos.
HP
And some of them have had to
out?
drop it completely because of recent price.
Oh, that's what, right.
Both
I just
Dell
said that.
and HP removed support on some of their laptops due to a 20% price increase on the codecs. The computers can do it, but they can't pay for the licensing. And if you want it on a normal Windows install on your computer, Microsoft charges you $1 to get it. And unlike other things, that's not Microsoft's fault. The MPEG LA company doesn't charge you if you ship less than 100,000 devices, but for any
Do I
major
think I can hack
company,
you?
it gets
I'm not a
pricey to
serial
support
killer. I'm
these
not into
files.
hacking
It's
people.
so expensive that rival companies like Amazon, Netflix, Apple, Intel, Nvidia, Mozilla, Microsoft, Google, and more all got together to create a royalty-free option known as AV1, which not only
LFS
is
101
cheaper,
with
but
Google
can
IT
actually be more
automation and
efficient
Python
than
cert good enough for an
H.265. Now,
entry
there's not
remote
much
role from
you
Jamaica.
can do to change the tides of how much money HEVC rakes in, but
the fact that
maybe
I've never
room
really
for
heard of those?
AV1 to
No.
take over or some other royalty-free option. I don't think you hate MP4s enough.
I think a lot of people need to understand when it comes to certs and all that, a lot of them, you have to look at, the best way to do is look around at what jobs are actually asking for and see the ones that pop up. For entry-level roles, if they want to cert at all, it's CompTIA, it's, what is it, the A+, the Network Plus, the Linux Plus. But the honest truth is, remote roles at an entry level, not happening really these days. And because a lot of businesses are wanting, I mean, like, for remote, it's really tough. Like, even somebody that's more senior like me, it's getting tough to find opportunities. You may just have to accept that entry level, it's not really going to happen. Can it happen? Yes. Is it, I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm saying it's improbable. And in this economy right now, it's very tough. VLC, yeah. Distro release. It's Pop OS.
Anything could be a mimic.
Yeah, that's what mimicry is. No, literally anything. No, I just made this. I only looked away for a second. Alright, let's get some shoes on.
I should mention I'm Australian, so that's... Oh. Gotcha. The fantasy... Oh my god!
God damn it! Ha! You owe me $10. How could you possibly know if that was going to break him or not? Plus, not a matter of if, but only when. Isn't that his coffee? He certainly wasn't gonna finish it. You're a special flavor of bastard, you know that?
Okay, what's this?
No, we're not running out of QR codes, but with how often we're all using these things, you should really know how they work and what they mean. QR stands for Quick Response Code, and it's a series of black and white modules that, while seemingly random, actually have very distinct meanings if you look closely. There's a whole anatomy behind QR codes. Those squares you often see in the top two and bottom left corner.
You should also not be scanning random QR codes because there's no security around them.
To help your camera realize what it's looking at super quickly. Alignment markings are slightly smaller smaller boxes that help them to be read on a curved surface. The row and column stemming from the lower right corner of the top left alignment marking make up what's called the timing pattern, which tells the scanner how large the data matrix is within the code. Two boxes immediately above the bottom left alignment marking and to the left of the top right one denote the version information, which is important because there's technically 40 different variations of QR code. The rest of the areas around the corners all pertain to formatting information, and everything that's left is all dedicated to data. This is what's actually storing the characters behind the code. And there's even error correction baked in here that lets up to 30% of the thing to be straight up missing and still be able to be scanned. But we're not running out because you can make QR codes infinitely big, and that means we have an infinite amount of them. No, we're not running out of QR codes, but
Okay, yeah. I don't know why they went on about why we're running out of QR codes when we're not. Okay. Wait. Okay, so next video. Xbox prices will raise again. Really? Oh god, how's Microsoft going to shoot themselves in the foot now?
We at Xbox are sad to announce that we are once again raising the prices of our consoles. Again? This is the third time this year! The Xbox Series X already costs $650. How much more can it cost? $800? We apologize for this. Due to the skyrocketing price of RAM in markets, this is affecting all gaming components used in consoles. Really? You're blaming RAM? Surely it's not the— Oh my gosh! $900 for 64 gigabytes of RAM? What's going on? Due to the rise of the AI sector, there's been an unprecedented demand for RAM across the US. But wait, it says here that Microsoft has invested tens of billions of dollars into AI. So basically, by investing into AI, you guys are directly causing the RAM shortage, which will cause the price of your consoles to go up. We're really about to see AI destroy the gaming industry. It's game over. We at Xbox are sad to announce that we are once again raising the prices of our consoles. Again? This is the third time this year.
Yeah, Microsoft, they played themselves, really. I mean, I don't understand why RAM got, like, jacked up the way it did. I mean, I do, but I don't. The timeline should have been, you know, better. Video's buffering. You only dropped 146 frames. Wasn't that bad? In fairness, PS5 is going up as well. Everybody's been doing that for multiple reasons, but Microsoft has just been shitifying the whole tech sector. Alright, so we got Google finally accepts JPEG XL is the future.
Google has a lot of tech, and with that, a lot of tech they've put an end to. So much so that there is Killed by Google, the Google Graveyard, a list of just...
That's also a big reason why I don't like using Google services, because I never can trust that they'll last.
Killed that we don't even publicly know about, that has been ended by Google. And sometimes, because of their browser monopoly, they try to kill off things that they don't actually own. The problem with that, though, is sometimes the embers live on, sometimes you don't have the ability to actually end it. A prime example being JPEG XL, and now that they can't end it, well, it's time to change gears, and you know what? We actually don't hate JPEG XL, let's actually do it. This happened a couple of days ago, and we will get to this.
Wait, what?
But I feel like it's been enough years at this point that surely some people don't know how we got here. Some people may not even know what JPEG XL is and why anybody actually cares about it. So the best place to go to actually understand what it is going to jpeg.org and going to the section on JPEG XL. Basically, it's a royalty-free raster graphics image format supporting both lossy and lossless compression. It's aiming to fill the role of both JPEG and PNG on the web, because it is actually a lot more efficient than both of these solutions, and converting
Really?
a JPEG into a lossless JPEG XL actually results in a smaller image, and because you're doing it in a lossless way, with no loss
back to
in
cartridges.
quality.
OpenAI
And
has a
it's got very
contract
fun
with
modern
SK
features
Hynix and
like
Cynix,
HDR, which
Samsung
obviously you wouldn't
to
be
purchase
there,
40%
but very
of all
importantly
memory
for,
for
the
the next 5 years.
progressive
Ew.
decoding. So you can download a small
We're 1 year
version
in
of
now,
the
so it's
image,
only
and
for the
you'll
next
see the
4
image,
years.
and then as it loads in more, it raises the quality of it. If you want a really good video about JPEG XL and why people actually care, I'll leave this video linked down below. JPEG is dying, and that's a bad thing by 2 clicks Philip. It goes into what JPEG is, it goes into JPEG XL.
Yeah, even I've been using
and its
PNGs
direct
more for
competitor,
everything.
AVIF. Now remember,
Oh, I've been using AVIF for a few
because
things
that's going
too.
to be very important to the story today. This was posted about a year ago and was well after the attempted killing of JPEG XL by Google. When people talk about Google and JPEG XL, they usually point directly to this thread: JPEG XL decoding support, image/JXL in blink tracking bug. This was the overall tracking bug for implementing JPEG XL, for dealing
I
with
know what a
JPEG XL
JPEG
bugs,
is?
and
I just want a
generally
picture of a
getting it into
goddamn
state
hot
where
dog.
it's actually usable. And this was open
I'm
on
gonna get a
February
hot
13th,
dog. Da, 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 da,
2021.
da, da.
If you want a relatively good explanation on what JPEG XL is, this is also a pretty good one as well. Basically, at this point, a lot of people were saying this is going to be the future of how we handle images on the web. And this isn't like a, let's say, WebP situation where it was this weird other format that people didn't really understand. It didn't really have that much support initially. WebP exists on the web now, but it's still something a lot of people actively don't like. This is something where it was basically just a JPEG, just
So they might just
a bit
renegotiate for
better.
even more.
And in this thread,
to
there was
extend.
a lot of
Yeah.
excitement about making this happen. A lot
Well,
of
I'm waiting for the
excitement, not
AI
just from
bubble to
users, there were
collapse.
definitely users
Some
as well,
videos saying AMD
but
and NVIDIA are
industry
slowly
partners,
slowly
industry
GPU
partners
manufacture to
of
make more RAM.
really big platforms.
That'd be
Here
nice.
we have a meta email. This
Well,
is
because
a
they can't put
Facebook
more
employee.
GPUs out with
Just
more
want to chime
RAM,
in
so
and mention
they
that
kind of
us
have
at
to.
Facebook are eagerly awaiting full JPEG XL support in Chrome. We are very excited about the potential of JPEG XL, and once decoding support is available, without the need to use a flag to enable the feature on browser start, we are planning to start experiment serving JPEG XL images to users on desktop web. The benefit of smaller file size and or higher quality...
Well, I'll never be on Facebook, so I won't be able to test it.
On our end, this is part of a larger initiative to trial JPEG XL on mobile in our native iOS and Android apps as well as desktop. But Facebook, they're just some small indie company. Who really cares what their opinion on a format is? What about other companies? I would like to add support from Adobe on adoption of JPEG XL into Blink/Chromium. JXL is a great advancement in raster imaging, and we look forward to being able to offer support for content authoring and editing in JPEG XL to our customers. Here we have a Cloudinary employee chiming in, explaining why they like JPEG XL. This is a big web CDN distribution platform. They're doing AI stuff now.
Never
I
heard
don't
of them
really care
before.
about that. Basically, they offer a lot of various back-end web-related things. At the time, they were employed here, but it appears now they may not be. Not too sure. I am writing to the Chrome team to request full support, not
Their
behind a
allegiance to
config flag,
JPEG
but
XL is what got
JPEG
them
XL in
canned.
Chrome. I am an engineer on Photoshop, Camera Raw, and Lightroom teams at Adobe developing algorithms for image processing. My team has been exploring HDR displays and workflows for still photos, and I believe that JPEG XL is currently the best available codec for broad distribution and consumption of HDR still photos. I've done several comparisons with AVIF and prefer JPEG XL because of its higher versatility and faster encode speed. And around this time, Adobe even began recommending the use of JPEG XL for sharing camera raws. This is something that Adobe really felt was a good direction for the industry to go. I represent Intel for external partner engagement and standards development for HDR. Intel started support for HDR in January of 2017. We have shipped in the range of 1 billion CPUs and GPUs with HDR support, so we are very keen supporters of HDR for still image photography. Blah blah blah, don't really care. JPEG XL appears to be the only format with suitable compression for images on the web, 16-bit per color channel, and support for the color gamut widely used for DSLR and MLC photographers, e.g. ProPhoto and other wide color gamuts capable of representing the color range captured by cameras. Beyond the critical requirements, JPEG XL also supports other highly important features, lossless compression options for archival usage, progressive image download for efficient web display, and based on other research, appears to have class-leading compression rates and superior image quality at the compression rates typically used for still images. No other formats provide all of these important features for still images. And we also had a Critter dev chime in. This format, along with AVIF, are the only two that could possibly support HDR in consumer environments, but from a development point of view, JXL makes it far easier to do ICC color management. Additionally, while I expect a greater focus will be placed in the photography
AI
features of
goes
JXL,
down, everything will
we
go
also
down.
support importing
No,
and
it won't.
exporting animations, which some users
Did you miss
may
the entire
find
video where
more
we
useful.
talked
Right,
about
that's
how
another
it's all
thing that
circular
JPEG
and it's a
also
bunch of
supports.
just
Animations. And like Meta, here is another on the
BS
consumer
money?
side rather than the production side. The Guardian, that news outlet that's
like every
relatively
single retirement
popular,
fund investment
they
firm and
also
Roth IRA is
support
all
the
on
use
AI.
of JPEG
Well, that's
XL
their own
because
fucking damn
if you're
fault for
distributing content on the web,
doing that.
you don't want to have to deal with
I didn't
paying your
put my money in there.
CDN to have to distribute your image content. And here is someone from F.
So let's put it this way. NVIDIA is putting money into different companies so that they can actually, what was it, like, for example, like XAI, they invested money in on the condition that they buy NVIDIA GPUs and maintain a usage of a certain percent of the GPUs. So they put money in so that that company can then buy GPUs from NVIDIA, so they show money coming out, but then the evaluation is based on them using NVIDIA. It's this whole weird circular BS. So, we've been through bubbles before!
FFmpeg. I am the author of FFmpeg's libjxl wrapper that adds JPEG XL support to libav codec. I can also confirm that a native libav codec JPEG XL decoder is directly on the to-do list. Speaking from a technical standpoint, JPEG XL handles alpha, that being transparency, significantly better from a decoder perspective than AVIF, its closest competitor, which requires a separate decoder context to be initialized. It might not matter if the decoding process is entirely abstracted away, but it can create extra overhead for decoding AVIF files that contain alpha channels, something JPEG XL does not have to worry about. JPEG XL also makes color management much simpler than existing formats like WebP or PNG, and legacy JPEG's color management is not as widely supported as the spec provides. Plus, backwards compatibility with legacy JPEG makes it significantly easier for CDNs or even average users to batch convert legacy JPEGs.
I recommend having savings
to JPEG
outside of a
XL,
bank account.
with the
That's how
primary
bad this
limiting
is.
factor
I've
being
been telling
browser
people for
support,
a while.
as most other applications support JPEG XL.
My financial
including GIMP,
advisor
Critter,
takes care of my
FFmpeg,
Roth IRA.
and a whole bunch of others. So during this time, a lot
told
of
him I
things were
didn't
falling
want it
into
in there.
place. This seemed like the direction the entire industry was going. There was a lot of industry support behind it. It wasn't just something where a couple of open source projects were doing it. This is something where Adobe, Facebook, FFmpeg, which is the backing for so many other things, and a bunch of other projects either supported it or were directly saying, this would make what we're doing better. And a bit later on, Shopify even added support for JPEG XL to their platform. Obviously, it's still behind a option in Chrome, so basically no one was using it, but they already had support in the platform. So it seemed very weird when this happened. When this change just appeared out of nowhere, removing the flag, but not enabling the feature.
Wait, what?
Removing the ability to use JPEG XL in Chromium. And
Why?
with the industry support, people were obviously very confused by this. why would this be happening? This doesn't make any sense. With a Chromium dev saying after the fact, "Thank you everyone for your comments and feedback regarding JPEG Excel. We will be removing JPEG Excel code and flag from Chromium for the following reasons. Experimental flags and code should not remain
What the hell?
Okay, I agree. The experimental flag
Yeah, I agree with
shouldn't
that
remain
part.
indefinitely. Improve the code, make it not experimental. There is
Right.
not enough interest from the entire ecosystem to continue experimenting with JPEG Excel. Keep in mind, this is after Adobe has support in their entire suite, Facebook wants to use it, Adobe is recommending it for camera raws, a bunch of CDNs want to use it, Shopify has support, a bunch of open source projects have support, including FFmpeg, which is the
You see, this right here is the exact reason why I tell people when they're like, why do you use Firefox instead of like Brave or any of that? Because they're all based on the Chromium engine. So it's like, no matter how much I like Brave and what they're doing, they are still beholden to Google's nonsense with the Chromium engine, and it will hold back the internet development in the very same ways Internet Explorer 6 did with Microsoft until Mozilla Firefox came around back in the day, originally Netscape Navigator, whole other story there. And then more people were going over there, and it forced Microsoft's hand to change their ways. Google is now doing what Microsoft did back then to stagnate innovation in the internet. And say what you will about the Mozilla Foundation and what they've been doing with Firefox and everything like that. Look, I will agree they've been making some bad moves on the Foundation. But there's a reason why I would much rather support the Mozilla Foundation over Google and Google Chromium. And I will definitely support Ladybird as they come out and get a little bit more stable. And the Servo engine as well, which we talked about recently, got into 0.0.1. That'll be quite a while until it actually builds out. But we need to get away from the Chromium engine monopoly.
backing for so many other projects, there is no world where it can have more ecosystem support than by Chrome going and supporting it. That is basically the only major thing left at this point. The new image format does not bring sufficient incremental benefits over existing formats to warrant enabling it by default. This right here is why a lot of people are suggesting it had to do with AVIF, which is a format that Google was very involved in pushing because that is the image component to AV1, and Google is very interested in doing AV1. By removing the flag and the code in M110, it reduces
Don't get
the
me
maintenance
wrong.
burden.
I want to see AV1 to move from H.264 because I put my NVIDIA 5050 in the stream box so I can prepare for AV1. But yes, this is annoying.
To see supported would reduce maintenance burden. But it's a free feature that people wanted. Obviously, they never confirmed the reason why
I don't think Chrome will lose its chokehold.
They're trying to kill competition for AVIF.
People said that Microsoft would never be knocked off its pedestal with Internet Explorer.
Because obviously,
technology changes all the time.
Support is a lie. Like, this is just an obvious lie that anybody reading this thread, which
and Google is losing their chokehold because they're so far behind in AI.
Is a lie. Do you realize the consequences of removing JPEG Excel in Chrome? It will not move other companies such people to use WebP, AVIF, HEIF, otherwise they already would be doing so. They will still be using JPEG, and that is basically the state that we're still in.
Yep.
Yeah, of course, you have some WebP stuff floating around. There's a few little bits of adoption of AVIF. We don't even talk about this one, but the majority of stuff on the web is still JPEG and PNG. Please let the community decide which format will be used, because they already had patches in Chrome, right? They decided to remove the patches. It is really sad to see how other companies and software are adding support for JPEG Excel, and only Chromium wants to remove it without any good reasons, provided reasons are not valid, or I would rather say are lies. I'm just going to say it as a lie because it is literally in the thread you're reading.
I'd agree with that.
There is no way they are not aware of all of the industry support for it. I still believe, and I hope that I'm not alone, that the JPEG XL is the best replacement for JPEG, PNG, and GIF. When all this was going on, there is one thing I did appreciate. They didn't lock the comments. They let people tell them, you are stupid. This is a bad idea. You should implement support for this, and just let them do it. I wish more open source projects were like this. Whilst Google tried to stamp it out, they didn't succeed in doing so. It left some embers, and people kept working on things. Progress was being made. In 2022, we had the addition of support in WebKit GTK. Yeah,
oh, interesting.
WebKit GTK, no one uses it. It doesn't really matter, but it's something. In 2023, people noticed support was being worked on in the Apple ecosystem for Safari. That is a much bigger deal. Then somebody realized that OS-level support for JPEG XL was being added into Windows.
Oh, interesting.
In 2024, somebody outlined all of this, and it wasn't just Safari. iOS 17, iPadOS 17, macOS 17.
Oh, this was a while ago.
Support JPEG XL. System applications like Files, Photos, Finder, and Preview all support it. The WebKit engine supports it. This is a really big deal. Also outlining the fact that a lot of CDN services were also very interested in JPEG XL, because for CDN services, if they can offer the same or higher quality images for less storage,
that's a lot of money
that's
savings.
Just cost.
Yeah.
They are just saving money by doing that. And come 2025, we have this.
This is all the technical stuff. The actual JPEG XL standard itself is this 18181. It's 4 parts, published in 2024. So that tells you also that it's relatively new. Now, although that's an ISO standard, it was actually developed in the JPEG community well before that. So in terms of PDF, I can't tell you what the answer is today, but I can tell you we will adopt JPEG XL as a new image format and have to consider all the implications to rendering.
This is the PDF Association. This is the people that define the PDF standard.
Interesting.
And along with this, we also have Firefox, Mozilla, updating their stance on JPEG XL. So originally this was asked in May 7th, 2021, and down the bottom here we have the old version. Originally, we have a neutral stance on JPEG XL. There are two competing forces in play here that we need to acknowledge explicitly. Adding new formats comes with a cost, not just to us. Adding, securing, and maintaining code is non-trivial, but to the web as a whole.
Right.
On the whole, having fewer formats for the web is better, as that limits the complexity of authoring and serving content. We support multiple formats only to the extent that those formats address the needs of people and sites. Overall,
Fair enough.
we don't see JPEG XL performing enough better than its closest competitors like AVIF to justify addition on that basis alone. Similarly, its feature advancements don't distinguish it enough above the collection of formats we already include in our platform, so we don't see the support for JPEG XL as either good or bad for the web. We might find it necessary to support the format if usage becomes more widespread, but that will be a product decision. Basically, because Google said we're not going to do it, Firefox says there's obviously no reason to do it because there's not wide enough spread support, which makes sense.
It does.
But it's not there because Google decided they wanted to try to kill the
Yeah,
format.
I can kind
And
of see where
2024, they
Firefox should have
changed their
just
stance.
said, hey, we're going to do that.
Firefox will consider a Rust implementation of JPEG
Of
XL.
course.
Ooh, it's Rust. Over
We'll
the past
do
few
it,
months,
but only
we've
if
had
it's in
some productive
Rust.
Conversations with the JPEG XL team at Google Research around the future of the format in Firefox. Our primary concern has long been the increased attack surface of the reference to code.
Oh, I hate the
Currently
Firefox
behind
leadership
the
too. I
in
basically said the same
5.98,
thing
which
earlier.
weighs in at more than
But my
100,000
memory
lines of
leaks.
multi-threaded C++. My understanding is a lot of that is actually test code, so this is kind of a disingenuous way of framing it, but it is what it is. To address this concern, the team at Google has agreed to apply their subject matter expertise to build a safe, performant, compact, and compatible JPEG Excel decoder in Rust, and integrate this decoder into Firefox. If they successfully contribute an implementation that satisfies these properties and meets our normal production requirements,
how about they just allow it to be a plugin for both, i.e. Chrome, Firefox? Because we want it as an actual standard. A plugin doesn't suffice. You want it in the base.
If websites are shipping JPEG Excel images, you either ship them or you be the one out of the 3 major browsers that is broken. So you actually don't get a choice anymore. So you're going to have to do it. Time will tell whether the format succeeds in becoming a universal JPEG replacement in the way some folks hope. In the event that it does, it would be unfortunate.
This reminds me of when Firefox was having that whole DRM debate, and then Netflix and stuff wasn't working because of it.
And battle-tested Rust decoder.
And eventually they acquiesced and said, yeah, we gotta allow it.
Less likely, and so we're using our leverage? Our leverage. What leverage does Firefox have over Google? What leverage does Mozilla have over Chrome? Good luck with that one. So at this point,
they are delusional if they think they have the leverage over Google.
They kind of needed to say something because everything else in the chain was saying, we're going to support JPEG Excel. Why are you blocking this? And finally, that gets us to what happened a couple of days ago. Since JPEG Excel was last evaluated, Safari has shipped support and Firefox has updated their position. Don't pretend like you care what Firefox's position is. We also continue to see developer signals for this in bug upvotes. Those were always there. In job proposals and survey data. There was also a recent announcement that JPEG Excel will be added to PDF. Given these positive signals, which were already there 4 years ago, we would welcome contributions to integrate a performant, memory-safe JPEG Excel decoder in Chromium. In order to enable it by default in Chromium, we would need a commitment to long-term maintenance with those and our usual launch criteria met. We would ship it in Chrome. And with that, a few days ago, somebody was assigned to the issue within the Chromium issue tracker. So, hopefully, there's progress that is actually made here. There is a little bit being done with the integration of JXL into Chrome, so we'll see if this happens and we don't end up waiting another 5 years for Google to decide we just don't want to do it. Now, this person here, they're not being very productive in the thread. Please don't go and do this. If you want to say stupid shit, my comment section is a great place to do that, so keep that there. Don't go and just, threaten them with antitrust lawsuits in their bug tracker. That's dumb. You're dumb. This person is dumb. Again, do it in my comment section. At this stage, nothing has officially changed. We don't have
don't go around doing that stuff
in the browser just yet. But hopefully it comes soon. And hopefully JPEG Excel can become the standard image format going forward. After a 4-year side quest, waiting for it to be implemented. I didn't think it would ever happen, but now it seems possible. So, let me know your thoughts down below. Are you excited for JPEG Excel? Do you care whatsoever?
Do I care?
I'd love to know.
Not really.
So if you like the video, go like the video. If you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, Scribes, Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I'll show you something, XL.
Jesus. Alright, next video. Titled Tech Users Never Change. You know they're American because they threaten to sue. Yeah, that's such an American thing. I've never really threatened to sue. I've just threatened to leave their project, or at worst, I've said, I'm going to make a video talking about how bad this is. And I've done it. I've done that before. I've had vendors that have pissed me off. There was one vendor once that got pissed at me because they sent me a product and I didn't want to do a video on it because it was a piece of crap. And they tried making some TikToks calling me out and, all that, like trying to harass me. And I'm like, little fly, go away. Because I'm not going to be recommending crap to my community if it's stuff I don't believe in. Oh, Chief, opinion on the hard drive shortages? There's a shortage on everything. A lot of it has to do with the fact, and this is nothing new, we've been dealing with this since COVID, a little bit before. What's up, Sapphire? Where the problem is a lot of the supply chain is basically just in time. We saw how that broke down during COVID because borders were shut down and they don't really stockpile supplies. They have components delivered just in time, from raw materials to the device to all that. The supply chain overall for technology is a very delicate one. And any major swings or changes cause major issues. So like COVID, it was an issue of we literally couldn't ship, people weren't able to go to work, there was all that. Now the issue is we have OpenAI, Microsoft, making this significant request, was that 40% of all RAM for the next 5 years. We're 1 year into it now, and now we're seeing impacts on RAM prices because the supply is hurt, because, so you see the problem. We don't have enough production going on, and that's the problem. God, remember in 2021 when 2080s were going for like 1700? Yeah, I remember it was next to impossible to get my 3070 here. My dad, back when we were on speaking terms and before his mental illness really took him, was actually nice enough to wait at Micro Center for 5 hours to get me the 3070 so that I could finish my workstation here. That was ridiculous. And the only reason we did that was because I didn't want to deal with scalpers. That same 3070 was going for like $1,500 or so dollars. I was not paying that. I paid Micro Center, and Micro Center is still charging above MSRP. I think I paid like $700 or $800 for this guy. I have a question. Do you think I have a backdoor in Pixel Phone? No. Let me put it this way. The average person that's going around, do you think I have a back? No, you don't. And if you did get something malicious installed in there, that's because you did it. But honestly, if you have a Pixel Phone, you should be running Graphene OS, in my personal opinion. Alright, continuing on. Indie games have won 2025.
Indie games are taking over! 2025 has had Silksong, Expedition 33.
I do agree.
Hades 2.
I should play Expedition.
Oh yeah, most of the games that are being nominated for Game Awards are one of ours. If only there was somewhere I could go, where I could play a ton of indie games before they come out.
What is this? Oh, MIGs? Interesting.
So how was it? I think I saw God. Indie games are...
That's actually nice. I do like the fact that indie studios are winning a lot more. Alright. We can at least get one more video for the night. Because I do want to get to bed early, catch up on some sleep. I've been enjoying sleeping in during these Thanksgiving breaks. Because I do also want to get back on tomorrow working on some projects, and I have a meeting, and I need to work on some videos and everything. So there'll be some more content coming your way. We'll see how the video production schedule goes with me going back to school. That'll probably be a few months of headache. Hopefully I can knock out the degree in like 6 months, but we'll see.
This is an application called Playnite. This is a very popular way to access all of your games in one location. Your Steam games, your Epic games, GOG.
Never heard of it before. I'll have to try that.
Uplay if you happen to have that.
Ew.
Battle.net. Is it still called Battle.net? I don't know. Whatever it's called.
I haven't used Battle.net in a while.
You might have games in this one unified interface.
Like your videos in TikTok and French titles. Your videos are interesting. Well, I appreciate it, Rotiga.
As DRM, but it does give you one easy way to see everything on your system. This is actually licensed under the MIT license. This is an open source project. The only issue is it's only available on Windows.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
And back in
I had
2017, someone opened an issue about this. Make cross-platform macOS and Linux for those that have Linux or Mac and not Windows. Now keep in mind, this is a few years after Steam for Linux was released, and also the OG Steam machines, but Proton was still about a year away. So this guy was... You were here early. Not planned in the near future. See number 38 for details. That is this one over here.
You got more
I will
downvotes.
leave this open for other people to see. Also, it's not a definite no. It's just not possible at the moment. Of course, when he said this, a bunch of people be like, ooh, no, grr, how dare you not implement something that I want you to implement.
The epitome was basically...
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It was a bit of a technical challenge because of how the dev decided to build it.
Well, how did he build it?
The biggest blocker is the absence of WPF on these platforms.
Not familiar with that.
Which is used for the GUI in Playnite. I'm currently not planning to use anything else because there isn't any mature toolkit with C# and modern binding support, with only Eto and Avalonia getting there slowly. So I guess it's up to Microsoft to release WPF as a cross-platform toolkit. Now, a lot of people are like, ugh, how dare you pick WPF to create your application? This person made it at a time where gaming on Linux and gaming on macOS, just macOS a little bit, Linux a little bit, but Windows was the gaming platform. Keep in mind, this is before Proton, right? You were not gaming on Linux at this point.
I
outside
was.
of a couple of weirdos running native games.
Hey!
Like even the Steam machines, right? The Steam machines were an
I guess I played myself on that one. But seriously, I was like playing Doom, Doom 3, Enemy Territory, Quake Wars, Quake 4, Tribes 2. There's a few games I was playing natively on Linux. Because that was back in the days when I used to tell you that we used to have to get the Windows install disks. And then we would grab the WAD files or whatever, go to ID Software, whatever company, run the native installer to use the files we grabbed off the Windows disks to then install it natively. Very different than it used to be, than it is today, but yeah.
absolute flop originally.
Oh yeah, Steam machines were absolutely a flop the first time.
The original Steam machines, utter mess. So it makes sense why you'd build a gaming application to game on Windows. And also you might think, oh, I could just run the application under Wine because this needs to integrate with the various stores on your system. That wouldn't work. Like, you need to have integration with the system properly. And at the time, there were alternatives like Xamarin and things like that, but Playnite relies a lot on plugins, and if you're going to have two different toolkits between the Windows and the Linux version, that's just...
Yeah, it's going to create a lot of problems that way.
Plugin devs would have to go and try to either
I can see that.
support both platforms, or just say specifically this only works on one of them, or it's only tested on one of them, and who knows what's going to break, and that creates a whole mess. I understand why the dev, if they built it with WPF, would take this stance. I would have preferred for them to, not build it like this, but it makes sense why they did at the time. And because people were just demanding changes, it ended up being locked because just demanding, hey, I want this to change, I want this to change, I want this to change. Like, they weren't adding any feedback, they weren't explaining how it could be done. There was just nothing to add here. Back in February, we actually had an update though. Upcoming major release Playnite 11 will be on modern open source and multi-platform .NET runtime, but will still only use WPF-based UI. This is for several reasons. One of the main ones being that Avaloni's developer experience is not, in my opinion, good enough to be used in projects like Playnite. Now, what
Have a good night,
Avaloni?
Rodrigo.
Because this has been mentioned a number of times. The future of .NET UI. Build faster, ship sooner, with technologies trusted by Unity, JetBrains, and hundreds of thousands of apps. Basically, it's a cross-platform way to run your WPF applications on platforms outside of Windows. And it is supported by a lot of very big names. I don't trust Boeing to build planes, but hey, maybe they're good at building software. Play Night heavily depends.
They don't make good that software. They're kind of janky there too.
On community-made extensions and themes, often developed by hobbyist developers, not professionals, and Avalonia is simply not user-friendly as much as I would like it to be for us. We are 100% moving to Avalonia at some point in the future. It's just not going to be the Play Night 11 release.
What are your questions?
The plan is to release Play Night 11, continue developing it for Windows only, and once Avalonia's developer experience improves, they are promising major tool improvements with their upcoming Accelerate program. I will start porting Play Night 11 to Avalonia. Once we have polished the Windows version of Avalonia-based Play Night, I'll start working on the Linux version. I don't want to make a just straight port of the Windows version. It just wouldn't be good enough. I would really like to have Linux-specific features available on release, like Wine and Proton-specific features, Epic and GOG plugins using Legendary and Heroic GOG DL respectively, and stuff like that. To sum this up, the Linux version is definitely something I plan working on in the future. It's just going to happen
I'll hold my commentary about Boeing. They're a customer of my company.
Who knows?
We're a customer of them.
But a few days back, another comment was made.
No, actually, we aren't.
Update
I can
2.
trash talk them.
I'm planning to move to Linux in 2026 after Play Night 11 is done. And since Play Night is my personal blocker for the move, I will try to make some Linux version in 2026. You know what? For all the reasons to get a Linux port ready, this is probably as good as any.
I would agree.
I make this software. I need this software. I want the software to work on Linux. I'm going to make the software work on Linux. It's definitely not going to be a fully featured version on parity with the Windows version, and probably desktop mode only, but something daily drivable with Linux-specific features, Wine and Proton integration, for example. Without that, it's literally useless.
I want to point out I'm planning to move to Linux in 2026. People are actively moving to Linux from Windows. Like, Microsoft does not realize how much they shit the bed with Windows 11 and how out of touch with their audience they are, that people are actively moving to Linux.
If that goes well, I'll start looking into Avalonia porting proper, say I mentioned in the previous updates. So getting all of this work done, getting plugins working, and basically making it a full cross-platform application. Now, I have not spoken to the developer, but I would assume a big part of the reason why they're actually thinking of moving to Linux, probably partially because of the Steam Machine announcement and, you know, Linux gaming is only going to get better and better and better.
Eventually, it's going to get better than Windows, period.
With the state that is modern Windows, and, well, I know a lot of people in the tech space who are like, you know what? I'm actually going to give this Linux thing a try. I really don't want to deal with Windows 11. Now, obviously, not everyone. But
I'm running Pop OS.
Like this might be part of the reason why they're also doing so.
Yeah, that's what I think, totally.
People that really want this. This actually comes out in 2026, and there's something...
Well, let me read this comment from Shiraz. Now, I'm not super knowledgeable on specific ISPs and their quality, but I'm looking to switch from cable to fiber. Google isn't available in my city, and AT&T gave us such a hard time with everything. That said, what would you recommend? I'm looking at Fios. We currently got a T-Mobile fiber network free trial, but the gateway is a glorified 5G repeater. Yeah, T-Mobile has not actually been deploying fiber everywhere. They're just doing the 5G rollout, and then if you get fiber, you're lucky. I don't know of anyone that actually has T-Mobile fiber. I hear of it, but it's like this unicorn fairy dust thing. I hear good things about Verizon Fios. AT&T fiber seems to be okay from the people that tell me, but I'm in the same boat too of wanting to move from cable to fiber internet. I'm actually at the point where I'm kind of like about ready to go door to door with neighbors and see if we can get enough of us to actually agree to go with a local ISP. So, because the issue is one ISP quoted me as doing it, and they gave me a sweetheart deal of about a $10,000 build out to do the initial fiber pull. And that primarily had to do with the fact because there was state and federal permits to get it to where I'm at, apparently, or something like that. Be that as it may. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. What's bullshit for me is apparently AT&T has fiber several blocks over, but somehow we don't get fiber in our area. It seems to be that if you're in an area that you're getting new builds out or you're really, really rich, then yeah. I have 128 gigabytes of RAM. My Windows 11 uses about 20 gigabytes. Switch to Cubes OS sitting on 3 gigabytes usage. Yeah, that'll actually happen. That'll actually happen. It shocks people to know how resource intensive Windows is. Windows 11 Enterprise. Using Enterprise. Not Pro, not Home. I installed it on the new not new laptop, but it's the spare laptop I have. I set up so that I can do testing and everything for as I get my bachelor's. Windows alone was taking 6 gigabytes of RAM. New install. Nothing else. My Linux box over here, it has 64 gigs of RAM. I think, now bear in mind, I'm running a lot of shit right now. My Linux box right now, with everything I have running, multiple IDEs, Draw, Discord, Element, Chromium, Firefox, some other tasks running in the background that aren't in the GUI. I'm using 17 gigabytes of RAM right now. Okay? There's quite a bit running on this machine right now. But I'm using it as a workstation. My Cubes OS laptop has 64 gigs of RAM. But it only uses a bunch of memory because I isolate almost everything into its own VM. But even under absolute load, with every single cube isolated running at the same time, I think I peaked at like 40. So right now our options are Frontier and FiOS. I hear great things about both. I'd say try them out. It can't hurt. They need to add Secure Boot, though. No. UEFI and Secure Boot not really needed as much as people say. I don't even use Secure Boot. Secure Boot actually causes problems. No wonder we have a RAM shortage. No, the RAM shortage is because of OpenAI. Apparently, they made an agreement with SK Hynix and Samsung to get 40% of all the RAM made for the next 5 years. Yep, Windows alone, before apps, uses 4 gigabytes just to use it, but you need 8 gigabyte to start out, so you really need 16 gigabyte to be safe for basic usage. Yeah, I maxed out that laptop I talked about to 12 gigabytes. It had 4 gigabytes soldered in and 8 gigabyte stick that was added. It needs it just to be a testing laptop. Windows XP was 2 gigabytes, needed 4 gigabytes. Now Windows 11, you need 16 gigabytes to be safe. Windows XP didn't need 2 gigabytes. I remember running it with 512 early on. Now, by the time we had left Windows XP, we were running into the 32-bit limits where we were running into 4 gigabyte address space, where you then had to enable, was it the PXE or whatever? Basically, no, the physical address space or extension, PAE or something like that. Basically, you would take the 4 gigabytes, then it could have another 4 gigabytes of space, because what would happen is that 4 gigabyte total would also include your VRAM usage. So I had like an ATI Radeon X1800 XT, I think it was, that had like 512 megabytes of RAM. And I would only be able to have 3.5 gigabytes of system RAM with that on until I added that physical address extension, which then allowed me to have 4 gigabytes of memory fully used, and then there'd be another 4 gigs available for the VRAM. How's your Tangara player? Still using it? Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that thing. I hope they have a new run of them, because I have a lot of people that have been interested in it. They've apparently learned a lot, and they're going to have some improvements. My first laptop, 2005, had 128 megabytes of RAM, 20 gigabyte hard drive, Windows XP. Yeah. You could do a lot with a little memory back then.
In the meantime,
Have Firefox with multiple tabs.
There are some Linux.
Oh yeah, it was slow with 128. You wanted to have a gig.
I'm not going to say replacement because none of these really feel like a full replacement. They work on Linux. They do a lot of the stuff that you might want, but a lot of people really want specifically Play Night and the set of features it has.
It does look nice.
Again, there are things you can use whilst you wait. None of these are bad projects. They just don't do every single thing that you might want from Play Night. One of these applications is cartridges. This is part of the GNOME Circle. This means it is a libadwaita application. Now, I've spoken my piece on libadwaita many, many times. I don't encourage anyone to use them. I personally try to avoid this toolkit as much as possible.
It makes sense.
However, if you're someone in the GNOME ecosystem, this does exist and you can go and use it. Or you can use it outside of that if you're not as bothered by it as I happen to be. Next is Pegasus. This advertises itself more on the retro emulated games, things like that. But you can integrate your Steam library as well. That is also a thing you can do. If you care about style, maybe this one is a little bit rough.
Yeah, I could see that looks rough.
Especially a bit rougher than cartridges because it does fit in with that GNOME style. And especially a bit rougher than Play Night is. However, this is a relatively popular option. And in some sense, Lutris also kind of fits the bill. Usually this is used for more individual
I've used Lutris more for individual titles.
Library into it, but you can access your library through it as well. That is a thing you can do.
I pretty much use Lutris and Steams and Heroic Launcher as well.
Emulation stuff and all that through it. There has been some discussion on an improved UI for using it more cleanly on the Steam Deck.
I can see that.
That hasn't happened yet. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. It was something the dev was talking about a couple of years ago, but even so, Lutris is a very popular option. Anyone on Linux, I probably don't need to tell you about Lutris. Another one I probably don't need to tell you about is the Bottles application. This is also a libadwaita application. I already said my piece on libadwaita and why I'm not a fan of it. The dev is working on
and launching it through Steam, the controller, and etc. Yeah,
eventually goes away. This has ways to integrate stores into it as well. So even though the main thing isn't about that, that library functionality is still kind of there. Again, it's not as pretty as what you get from using Play Night. It doesn't have all the metadata stuff and all of this stuff people really like from Play Night.
I mean, yeah, Play Night looks really nice. I'd like it on Linux.
Choice. Bottles is a lot more about really heavily customizing your wine environment.
I used Bottles for a little while.
The application run as smoothly as possible. And of course, we also have the Heroic Games Launcher.
Yeah, I just talked about that.
Looks-wise, it does have the closest feel to Play Night. The main issue, though, is it doesn't integrate everything into
it. I mainly just use it for Epic and Amazon
Prime Games, but it doesn't integrate the Steam stuff. So, you just don't get everything, right? Like, if it integrated that, honestly, this would probably be the best replacement. And there have been discussions of the introduction of Steam, but they tend to get, like, really aggressive very quickly.
Yeah.
It's likely not going to happen. It's not clear why there seems to be this sort of objection to doing so. It's one thing to say, hey, we're not really interested in doing so right now, here's why, but there's not really been a clear answer for why all of these other stores, but not Steam. Even with that limitation, though, it is still quite a popular option, but
I just realized I'm in the covering him up.
Play Night on Linux, and if it did bring in Steam, it basically would be Play Night on Linux. Now, there are other options available, like ESDE.
Never heard of this.
Station Desktop Edition.
Yes, I have.
We also have Open Gamepad
Never heard of this
UI,
one.
and Launchbox.
Never heard of that.
There are other things that have existed in the past as well, like Game Hub. This is now marked as archived. I know some people were using this, and when I originally saw this, I thought this actually looked pretty cool.
That does look nice.
Could have become something like Play Night.
I really think so.
People were kind of thinking that was the direction it was going. I don't know exactly why it was stopped. Probably just because the dev didn't want to keep working on it.
Yeah,
I don't really know.
2019.
Let's find
Wait,
something.
April
Honestly, from what I
19th,
can see, it just
2025. That's
looks
not
like
too long
the dev
ago.
abandoned it. The dev got busy, and last update was 3 years ago. I didn't realize it was that long ago because I found this. I want to say it was more recently than that, but I don't know. I kind of wish this kept going. If someone wanted to fork this and keep it going,
Windows 11 does not
there's a
roll 30
pretty good
gigabyte of RAM. I
baseline
recently
already
upgraded
here.
my
But the
laptop
problem
from a
with all
ThinkPad
of these
250 to a
applications is
ThinkPad
whilst they are all
T480.
good,
It had 8
and
gigabyte
whilst
RAM. I
they're doing
upgraded
a
to
lot
32
of the
gigabyte, and I
things
use
people
half of it.
want,
Yeah.
they all miss something.
I can't run more than
people
Chrome
want
with a couple
from
of tabs
Play Night,
for
and this is why
the laptop
people
I have
really
just for
want
testing.
Play Night on Linux, because
Like,
it does everything. It brings
School
in
testing.
everything. It has a plugin system, so if you want to integrate other stores that are not directly supported by the application, you can also do that. You
that
can
is
even bring in
nice.
things that are not game stores, like AnyList, and use it just as a generic metadata library application.
oh, that is
I don't know why
nice.
you
I
would
actually
do
like that.
but you can. And there's support for just a bunch of other random things, like Minecraft launches stuff, whatever Big Fish Games is. DL site. Now, if you know, you know. If you don't, well, I'm not going to explain DL site to anyone who is not already informed about it. There's just a bunch of other things, Game Jolt and everything else you could possibly want.
Yeah, this
And
would be
it's
nice
not
if it comes
here.
to
Well,
Linux.
it's a plugin. There's a plugin system, so you can bring in whatever you want. And I think the UI is very useful, but to really make it actually valuable on Linux, I do agree that it needs to integrate this, like,
DL is Mega
Wine
Jorkin.
and Proton support. Maybe
Oh.
not as much as something like Bottles, where you can tweak every nice little thing where, you know, I think that's a bit too much. But at least as much as what you get with Steam, definitely as much as what you get with Steam, being able to select different versions, being able to bring in other versions very easily, being able to use things besides Proton, like a DOS box for older games, and maybe, like Lutris, have some easy way to configure basic options so you don't necessarily have to pass in, you know, config environment variables for every single thing you want to set. I think that by itself would be enough to make
Oh.
the Play Night interface and
Gotcha,
a nice
Vampire.
way to work with Proton.
I touch
And it
grass,
sounds
so that's
like
why I don't know
what
about
the
it.
Dev actually has in store. But what do you think? Are you excited to see Play Night on Linux? Are you the kind of person who would actually use an application?
I
like
actually
this? Or
would.
do you just
I didn't know
not
it
really care
existed.
about the
No, I want it to
collection of
exist on
stores
Linux.
that are out there? I would love to know. So, let me know your thoughts down below. If you liked the video, go subscribe as well. And if you really
don't
like the
scratch
video and
grass.
you
What
want to
about
become
Arch?
one
I use
of
Arch.
these amazing people over here, check out the
We get it,
Facebook,
Abby.
Stally Therapy,
You
link
use
in the
Arch.
description down below.
You don't touch grass.
That's going to be it for me. And
You are the CrossFit vegan of Linux. We get it.
tell me, do you
It's
get
okay. I love you, bud. I mean, that'd be nice to see Play Night come to Linux, but it's really interesting, I think, on the bigger scale to see that there's a lot of people that have been unironically discussing coming to Linux because of what Microsoft has just done with it. It's horrible what they've done to Windows 11. And as we were talking about in the chat, you know, Windows XP was great. Windows 7, I mean, a lot of people think it was great, but I still say XP was better. But 8 is when it all started going downhill. 10 kind of redeemed itself, but then 11 went, it kind of like went like this. You know, you had XP, which is like here, then you had Vista, and then 7 came back up, and then, you know, we got to 8, and then it was like, well, can't do 9, so we're gonna go to 10, so it's kind of like that, and now 11 is going... So, yeah, I honestly... It's amazing to see that Linux is going to get more enriched. Like you saw, Play Night, the dev himself is moving to Linux. He makes this app, so he wants it to work on Linux. I understand that that methodology because I make my apps in environments that I use and understand. And I've had people ask me, like, well, how can I get this running in Windows, you know, for the stuff I make? And I'm like, well, it runs in Docker, so you can get it running on Docker. And then go from there, but it's essentially just Linux inside of a Docker. But it's really going to be more interesting to see as time progresses, more people coming into the Linux ecosystem. Is learning Mandarin mandatory in OPSEC? No. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what the future holds. Especially with the Steam machine coming. I am looking forward to getting the new Steam controller because, I mean, this one was okay, but there's a reason I've still been using the 360 controller, and I want to move on from the 360 controller. And I want to look at the Valve frame. The Valve frame is going to be interesting, but I don't think I'm going to use it as a gaming platform as much. Maybe that'll change if I actually get it and when I actually get to use it. But I was thinking of like situations like, do you know how nice it would be for me to lay in bed, watch TV, and not disturb my partner when I'm in bed? Because no matter who I'm dating, they always complain about my habit of right before bed I need to watch TV. And right now, I'm in the middle of rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender. So, yeah, I always have to watch a show that I've watched before so that I actually get relaxed to watch it. So, yeah. Just remote desktop gonna be changed, game changed. Oh yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what the future holds, but yeah, we're gonna have a lot more projects coming our way though. We have the mini PC over here being a bang up logging server. I'm going to be working on the sim component of it now because I think I figured out what the issue was with why the IDS IPS dashboard was not working right. Cartoon, not the live action. Yes, of course. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original one from like what, 2005 or whatever? The Nickelodeon original one. I mean, don't get me wrong, I watched the live-action one just to say I've watched it, but the cartoon one is my favorite, and it's, the first American anime, I guess you could call it. But yeah, I think we figured out the, issue I had with, the IDS IPS dashboard crashing. Let me see if I can get that shown for you. And I'll tell you what the issue was. So I've got it improved to the point that I want, and I'm going to show you the next improvement that I figured out. So this is the IDS IPS dashboard. As we can see, we have the data for the last 24 hours. I can load the last 7 days. You can actually see when it started pulling in and indexing and everything. The reason why it had stopped for these times was I completely overlooked log rotation. And with log rotation, the Python I had was just opening the file and then working off of that log. Well, when a log would rotate, the file that was opened would still be, you know, there, but nothing new would be written to it. So now I have it log rotation aware with Watchdogs to actually restart the entire thing. So the IDS IPS dashboard and logging with OpenSearch is working as expected. The next thing that we have working out is, I can't show everything. Yeah, I can't show everything in this one. Yeah, but we can at least show you an example. I have some examples. I'll take the image from the GitHub repo. So I made a new dashboard. This is using the same data for the IDS IPS one, but this is per interface. So now you can break down the traffic per interface with top destination and source IPs over here. Let me pull up the GitHub so you can actually see an example of what that looks like. I have this written out in the documentation so you can all see this. So yeah, there are images in the README on the main page of this, so you can see this on GitHub. So as you can see, this is the PF Blocker NG dashboard. This is the one from the original dashboard that I got it from. There are some improvements since then. I'll figure out how to put that in because it's also showing some really cool things. No, wait, the Unify one is showing some cool things in addition to it. But yeah, there's some cool things in there. This is the current dashboard as it shows for everything. So it's showing the attacks, or at least what's coming in the IDS logs, where they're coming from. But this is the per interface setup over here. So as you can see, IX0 would be my WAN interface in this case, and you can see top destination IPs, top source IPs, alerts over time just for IX0. You can see that. Then IX1 is my backup internet. You can see when I just turned it on to be my only internet, and you could see the internet traffic as it was flowing. You could see right here, there were some alerts. This is actually paid off already because I found out I had a Docker that was still running on my Synology NAS. I completely forgot about iCloud Photo Downloader, which was having a Telegram notification go out constantly. And I'm like, why is Telegram on the network? So I hunted it down and I found there was that Docker running. Luckily, it was a benign thing, but this is an example of an IDS IPS. So you can see that's the per interface dashboard. So that covers the LAN side. This is the overall architecture of the entire system. How'd you get by the double NAT issue? So the T-Mobile gateway, it only gives a NAT address. So basically on that interface, I had to disable it, blocking bogon networks and stuff like that. So there's a way you can get around it by just disabling some issues. But that's a backup internet. It's not really the primary. It's only there when I unplug my main internet and there is an internet to happen. I may eventually change access points, but T-Mobile included the access point itself for free as part of the monthly plan, so I just deal with it. It works perfectly fine when I flip over, for what I do at least. Of course, there is a double NAT, but I don't do much gaming and stuff when I'm on that, but it's good to know that it's there. But this is the architecture that I have for the actual Python forwarder that I designed for the IDS IPS logs. So you have the internet going to the network traffic. Actually, I gotta disable dark mode here so you can see it properly. Here, actually, this will help if I, nope, did not mean to open that. Alright, so... media. Wait, where did I put the architecture image? Oh, I think it's under docs. Yeah. There's a lot of documentation, as you can see, to help everyone go through this. Well, anyway, here, let me, Alright, so... you have the internet going to the network traffic, going to the pfSense gateway. So the way this works is that we have watchdog scripts, and we have a restart hook also there for the recovery service. PF Blocker, NG, DNSIP blacklists are going to filter logs on filter.log, which then gets transmitted over to the filter, the telegraph agent over here, going into an influx DB. Cool. Now, the way that it also goes for here is it's feeding into, you know, all these different interfaces over here. Suricata uses Eve JSON logs that it actually gives a lot of data. So that gets shipped over through a Python forwarder, which has GeoIP enrichment, and it's rotation aware. So it actually pulls the GeoIP database, I think from NTOP-NG, that I already had installed, because that has the city database, which you need to get GeoIP location for that map, as you saw. So that basically pulls from Eve JSON, takes each IP that's added, does a lookup of where that is geographically located, enriches that data, ships it over JSON over UDP TCP to Logstash. Logstash then parses and nests Eve events, transforms it to suricata.eve, and from here it extracts it into the InfluxDB over there in certain metrics, but it indexes events into OpenSearch. From there, OpenSearch is then pulled into a Grafana dashboard. It just does a lookup on the OpenSearch, and that's how the data is displayed. So you have your different dashboard types there. So you have the Suricata IDS IPS with geomaps, alerts, and flows, and then you have the system metrics and everything there. Now, eventually what's going to be done is you see the alert rules over here, webhooks, email, Slack. The idea is I'm going to get the Wuzza seam set up. There's going to be Wuzza on here as well. And that is how I'm going to explore the logs and start doing correlation of data. That correlation is then going to be able to look at, hey, this device is doing that. There's these events happening with the SIM as well. And then based on certain rules, I can have it alert me to certain activity. Now, eventually what I want to do is I want to layer on that with Prometheus for data about each system to gather the metrics there. And eventually I would also like to get a proper EDR, EDR XDR, which does have some capabilities, but I want to get like Sophos or CrowdStrike or ESET or Bitdefender or one of them, depending on when I can have the money set aside to have enough endpoints, and then have that data tied into Wuzza SIM for all of that. And then I can have not just the IDS side of it, because this is basically just acting as a HIDS, a host identification, a host intrusion detection system. I want to have a host intrusion prevention system as well. So on the Windows side, Wuzza can at least tie into Windows Defender. On Linux, there are certain things, but I want to make it able to react and prevent certain behaviors. That'll be an interesting project. I don't expect this to be done overnight, but I can at least get a good chunk of it done probably in the next few days, and then go from there. So that's what we're working on right now. I used Linux before I used Linux before during my middle school years, but I've not fully learned it yet until I got into high school in a cybersecurity class, and the teacher there was nice enough to pay for the CompTIA exams for me and 3 more students that was there. I failed 3 exams but passed 1. Nice! It's also interesting to see that you get cybersecurity classes in high school, because I didn't get that privilege. We just went around breaking into people's Wi-Fi networks and learning about it all the malicious way, but times have changed. But yeah, there's a lot of different projects coming about. I'm also going to be upgrading the pfSense firewall, eventually to have a Xeon D processor. I found an inexpensive firewall for about $900 that I think is going to be perfect to fit the bill, because it's going to be AVX2 support, which then also means that I can move my pfSense to this box, which has 10 gigabit networking as well, so I can plan for 10 gigabit networking, and also have the advantage of improving the overall performance of that firewall, and reclaim my Intel Atom Server Edition so I can move N8N and all the Docker stuff that I've been running so far on there until I'm ready to move the Dockers to a Kubernetes, which I want to run on Raspberry Pi 5, cluster of 5 5s, with 2 controllers and 3 workers. That's going to be a whole other project in and of itself. I'll probably do the Kubernetes thing after I do the NVIDIA 5070 Ti upgrade on here, and definitely after I finish building the LLM and TTS servers. So there's quite a few things that are going to be coming up over the next few months. So, you know, if you want to contribute to the Hacker Fund and everything, tips and subs are always appreciated, but you're not obligated to do so. All of that helps me help you learn about all these things along the way, and I share all this information. I, of course, open source all of my work. Some things I do keep close to my chest for security reasons, but I do open source as much as possible. But with that being said, it's getting a little late right now. I do want to get to bed so I can, wake up a little bit earlier tomorrow. I have some meetings. I want to work on some content for all of you. I have some more videos coming out. I'm going to have some videos talking about gaming on Linux. That's going to be a little bit more in depth. I have some sponsored content coming about, which is going to be talking about securing your code with secrets management, what I use, why I use, what I've done, and all these different projects that I've been doing going into it. So I hope that you all see that because, of course, it helps me build all the things in this lab, and we have some amazing things happening in this amazing community. It would not happen if not for all of you. The community is what keeps me going. So, if you haven't already, make sure to join the Discord and the Matrix servers. Their links are in bio if you didn't see them in the chat. And of course, make sure to follow me on all of my socials. I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Mastodon, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitch, and I'm on Kick. So, make sure to follow me everywhere. You never know when one platform's gonna get derpy and kick me off of it. I mean, we've seen TikTok get derpy and kick my lives off for stupid reasons, but thank you all for joining me. I love all of you. Happy hacking, and if you're over on Twitch, stick around for the raid. I will see you all Sunday. Oh yeah, we're going to start doing movie night as well again soon. We're going to be doing some holiday movies. We got Adam Sandler's 8 Crazy Nights, definitely for sure. We got The Hebrew Hammer, that's another Hanukkah classic. We're going to do Trading Spaces. Should be fun for, the whole December holiday stuff. And there probably will be a stream as well, just so you know, on Christmas Day. Because, Jewish Christmas is just Chinese food in a movie. So, thank you all. Love you all. Stay safe. Happy hacking. Next stream, Sunday. And I will see you all then.